There is a universal truth. If you sow beans, you will reap beans. If you sow beans, you will reap beans. Strangely enough, that's not all. Strangely enough, there is no law stating that the world is always the same, which is a pity. From childhood, her mother explained to her how the world works, that there were countless events between the birth and death of all things. There are always exceptions, that's true, and they can make you wonder, can this really happen? One exception can make you doubt yourself. The main character did not know why it was her. The girl remembered her childhood and its beginning very well. She was born with ram's horns, but that was normal. The problem existed, but it was different. It was that the child's parents were lions. The woman always asked herself why she was different. Even as a little girl, she thought about it. The carriage raced down the road, and the brunette just thought about how she didn't want to go to school. The boy with light hair said goodbye to his sister and smiled before leaving for school. Only ancestry mattered. In the heroine's family, everyone married a lion and gave birth to another lion. The girl did not understand why she was the only one left out and why they had played such a cruel joke on her. There is diversity among animals in the world, and there is also diversity among people. They all look different. It is known that appearance was determined by what was passed down from generation to generation. Blood was what was called ancestry, and to preserve it, respected people united. The main character was born with the pedigree of a sheep, which could not have happened to someone from a family of lions. The girl attended a school for predators, but there were no others like her there, and her appearance caused quite a stir. Marital infidelity could not have happened. Something else simply happened. The heroine was lucky that her parents loved each other. Instead of hiding the child's birth and sending her to an orphanage, they surrounded her with love. Be that as it may, from the moment the baby was born, the couple began to study their family tree, and in the process, they found the reason. There was someone who had been erased from the family tree. A woman named Sophie, the heroine's great-grandmother. The child was told that she had horns on her head because of her relative, but her father promised that their love flowed through Lucy's veins. The blue-eyed girl understood and began to believe that even though she looked like a sheep on the outside, she had the heart of a lion on the inside. Although the girl understood everything, her brother, who was born when she was 4, changed everything. The boy was a lion, and part of Lucy was like her family, but she herself was like a stranger. The little girl was afraid to live like this. She began to understand that she was too different, no matter how hard she tried. Sometimes the lady wanted to be at least a little bit like everyone else, but nothing changed, alas. The brunette had to live as usual, only she had salad on her plate, which made her feel even lonelier. In general, appearance is not really important, but when people saw the surname Leopard, they tried to get closer. No one was to blame for the fact that a sheep was born into a family of lions, but there was not a single soul around her to understand how lonely she was. The blue-eyed girl thought more and more. She wanted to know if there was something better somewhere else outside of school. Someone could fill the lady's loneliness, but she didn't know how to fill it. The little girl wanted to learn more someday, and she did not lose hope. In class, the beauty couldn't concentrate while the teacher was talking. The brunette remembered something important. She had a social event to attend. The sheep looked down sadly. She was worried. Lucy didn't want to go. Her parents had asked her to. Blood communities called Pride or Circle usually met under the auspices of a common goal. Many believed that the hall became a place of exchange to learn about everyone's ancestry, but these were just excuses. The heroine noticed that there were never any herbivores near her. The hall was filled with predators. The woman did not understand what their goal was. It could have been either establishing political ties or forming marital alliances. There were different cases, sometimes rulers of families with similar status, but different pedigrees got married, but of course this did not apply to Lucy. The girl could not do anything about it because she looked like a sheep, and it was difficult for her to find a partner. The brunette did not understand what would happen to her if the child she gave birth to also looked like her. At a social evening, the lady laughed and talked for a few minutes, then calmly left to fold origami. The little girl folded beautiful dogs. It was her peculiar hobby, like a herbivorous, calm sheep. She heard the balcony door creak and the woman was distracted. She looked up, not understanding who was there. A guy came in, his light hair and eyes mesmerizing, his ears on his head moving slightly. Coming closer, the man smiled and said hello, and the heroine backed slightly toward the railing. The blonde wanted to introduce himself, but he was interrupted when the blue-eyed woman asked what was going on, apparently realizing he had wandered into the wrong place. The sheep assumed that she was looking at a dog. Her palm nervously clenched into a fist, crushing the small figure. The stranger didn't understand and asked again, but the sheep continued, reminding him that she had arrived first and that he should leave. The boy took the request literally, returning, closing the door and coming back to her. The boy's ears began to move slightly as if he were happy, while the woman looked at him incredulously. The girl silently looked at the child, perhaps because his eyes reflected the moonlight, shining bright silver. The brunette turned away, blaming herself for thinking such things. The man had no intention of leaving. Smiling even more, he asked what the little girl was doing alone on the balcony. The stranger suggested that Leopard had gotten lost. She shook her head. They asked her about her family and where they were. The little girl said she didn't know, and the woman knew that the boy had probably also come to look at her relatives. The boy was asked his name and he nodded and introduced himself. Roman. He looked as if he wanted to continue talking. The little girl immediately began to wonder what kind of family he came from and what his last name was. They had met without any introduction. The girl realized that the young man was not revealing his family at an official social gathering, which was very strange. The blue-eyed girl began to speak, but faltered, unsure whether she should mention her family background. The woman assumed that the young man really knew nothing. She remembered how other people reacted to her. Usually, strangers either began to stare at the beauty in surprise or pity her. Lucy realized that she had never seen him before, so perhaps she really did have the right to start a conversation. Exhaling, the girl says her name. Turning back to the railing, she suggests that Roman should leave. There is a long silence and the heroine feels that she wants to turn back. It is strange that the man does not leave. Perhaps the boy does not notice that he is causing discomfort to another person. The reason may be that he is a dog. Coming closer, the blonde man said the blue-eyed girl's name, and she jumped as everything was happening too quickly. The young man noticed the paper and assumed it was a fun activity, so he asked her to help him with origami. When the boy leaned closer, the girl smelled a floral scent and the smell of almonds, which was pleasant. Most likely, if the heroine does not give him the paper, Roman will continue to tease her, and as soon as he gets bored, he will leave immediately. A few more minutes passed, and the girl looked at the blonde boy with a careful gaze. Lucy couldn't understand why. At a party where everyone was busy networking, the young man was standing on the balcony doing something silly. The young man was silent, but then asked why the paper was tearing in his hands. He couldn't get it right. Lucy couldn't take the pressure anymore, jumped up, and started screaming that if the stranger didn't like her, he shouldn't take his anger out on her. Roman began to justify himself, saying he didn't know how to do it, so everything turned out wrong. The woman continued to scream, asking if the guy shouldn't have tried to fold origami if he didn't know how. He had to explain that he just wanted to be friends, and she shouldn't think that he didn't like her. The blue-eyed girl asked again, saying he shouldn't try to be friends with her as there was no point in it. The girl started talking about her family, and my friend didn't understand what the point was or why she was bringing it up. It became clear that it would be better to remain silent. The girl turned away, waiting to see what would happen next. The blonde still didn't know if telling someone he didn't like about friendship would work. The man pointed to a young man in the hall, and the girl grimaced. She would never be able to approach someone like that. Lucy couldn't help but laugh. The boy seemed funny to her, so she offered to teach him how to fold origami. Roman nodded in agreement. Please teach me. He was completely sincere in his request. That day, for the first time, the woman had a good time with a man of a different background. They didn't even think about their status. The boys' situations were similar, but for some reason, Roman still decided to lie. There was no answer. The girl felt elated. She didn't eat anything that evening, but she didn't feel anxious about being hungry. Lying in bed, The lady wondered why she had reacted so violently when she found out that Roman wanted to be friends with her. Come to think of it, this was the first time she had been with someone at a party and felt a sense of freedom. The boy said he really wanted to be friends, that a relationship with Lucy would bring him no benefit. The girl sighed sadly, her eyes fixed on the ceiling, her mind racing with thoughts. The couple talked for only half an hour or an hour, but it already mattered. The heroine wondered if the boy liked their conversation. As she fell asleep, the girl thought about how great it would be to meet again, but she understood that next time her friend would approach someone else. A clear morning dawned, and the girl was getting ready for the reception. Finally, the momentous day had arrived. The heroine saw her reflection in the mirror, her head full of thoughts, because she didn't know if the dress and jewelry looked good on her. Her brother lay on the bed in the room, waiting for the girl to finish and leave. He believed that Lucy was beautiful no matter what. The blue-eyed girl assured him that she wasn't dressing up to show off to anyone. She had other reasons. Leopardi carefully put the earrings back, realizing that she had gone to too much trouble for a reception. The girl arrived at a place where a crowd of diverse people she didn't know had gathered. When the lady stepped out onto the balcony, the young man's beautiful white hair shone before her eyes again, bringing her nothing but joy. The young man led the heroine behind him, glad that she had come, thinking that the lamb might refuse. The brunette turned away, not understanding why her acquaintance was so worried. Now it was time to think of something to talk about. After a few seconds, the lady finally suggested something. Perhaps the hero would like to fold origami again. Roman smiled radiantly and nodded in agreement. It was good that he had a tail, because it showed that the boy was really interested. The blonde boy decided to ask a question. He was interested in what school his friend went to. She studied at Urbanu and he studied at Juvencia. The girl understood that that school was only for those who belonged to good families. People from such families strive to shine in society, but for some reason the lamb had never met Roman before. When the aristocracy collapsed, the girl heard that many of those who had recently been educated were from the dog family. Perhaps the boy's family belonged to the new aristocracy, and such people were usually expelled. Barushka decided to distract herself a little, and Lucy carefully showed her how to fold origami. When the man was distracted, the lady continued. If Roman was really at the reception for the first time, he should be doing something else. It seemed that he should establish as many connections with the outside world as possible, but he was sitting on the balcony. Leopard asked if his parents would mind if he spent time with a stranger. As it turned out, his father was not at the event, and Roman's mother had died, so the girl apologized for her questions. The girl was too careless when she said something wrong. She didn't mean anything bad or tactless. Smiling, the blonde assured the girl that she didn't need to apologize, as he had come to the reception with his older brothers. When asked if he got along well with his family, the guy gave an ambiguous answer. They often quarreled, but then everything was fine. Lucy suggested that this was because they were dogs, and a laugh escaped from her chest. Seeing how her acquaintance smiled when he answered, the girl realized that the family did get along well after all. Roman asked about Lucy, whose brother had refused to attend under a very strange pretext. The girl herself would also like to stay at home, but she understood perfectly well that if she did, her parents would be upset. Exhaling, the boy said that it was a relief, but the girl did not immediately understand what he meant. It was foreign to her. Whatever the purpose of the lamb's visit, it was at the reception that the two met. It was fate. For some reason, the conversation turned to Louis. The lady couldn't say much, but she thought they had a good relationship. For the boy, what she said was fantastic. His brothers fight when they are bored. The blue-eyed girl wanted to make 2 dogs out of paper, but she didn't have any sheets left, so an idea popped into her head. The heroine wanted to try something new. She had read that if you stroke a dog on the head, all your stress will disappear. The boy asked again, puzzled, clearly not expecting anything like this, but agreeing to listen. Barushka was already beginning to doubt that anything would work, and that her hairstyle would be completely ruined. The lady was already ready to give up on the idea when she was stopped. Roman explained that everything really worked as it should. Bowing his head, The hero asked her to stroke his hair, and the girl froze as soon as she touched it. The young man began to make sounds of pleasure, and the lady was sure that he must have friends and was not an outcast. Time passed, and the hero asked if they could meet again, receiving an ambiguous answer. The girl smiled slightly, and it was completely unknown when the next social gathering would take place. Everyone knows that events are not held on a strictly fixed date. Each time the guests receive a letter. The boy was disappointed. He realized that they would not meet. Everything changed quickly, and Lucy said she would come anyway. Of course, the blue-eyed girl couldn't make a promise, but she wanted to spend time together again. The girl realized too late that they should have at least exchanged contact details. Presumably, they became close friends, and the lamb thinks that they can meet not only at receptions. Lucy was unsure of herself. Her friend could get into trouble for associating with someone like her. In the evening, the young lady told her parents that she had made her first friend, and they asked her questions. The girl had never had anyone close to her because she was a little confused and had many questions in her head. The more time passed, the more the lady realized how confusing everything was. Roman didn't even tell her his last name. Obviously, the guy didn't even care about anything unimportant, which made him seem more special than the rest. The beauty was happy to be around such a person. She hoped for more interaction. Her wishes were heard, and the young people met again very soon because, as luck would have it, more events than usual were planned. The end of the year had not yet come, but for some reason, charity receptions were held every week. The girl was so happy. There were rumors that the Baskervilles family was behind the organization, and they were good people. Their family crest depicts a white-crowned wolf, and they were always up to something. The family is known for quickly getting back on its feet after the war and becoming the founder of a leading corporation. Blondie explained that this was not the case, that they were involved in charity work, which is what it is called. Barushka laughed. Roman seemed naive to her. She changed the subject, saying again that she was happy to see him. After several meetings between them, a tacit agreement naturally arose. Upon entering the banquet hall, the couple always greeted each other with their eyes, then, avoiding eye contact, looked for a secluded place. The girl thought for a moment and decided that the balcony was too open, so she suggested going inside. She didn't even consider the banquet hall. The beauty spoke of more secluded rooms. The girl led her friend to a room where she announced that she had found shiny paper for their origami. The boy always took the folded figures with him, and the lady brought him not only paper but also food. The young man was always worried. Even then, he understood that it wasn't very nice to eat meat right in front of a herbivore. The little girl waved her hand dismissively. She never saw anything wrong with it. There was no need to worry. Lucy had long been accustomed to it. Obviously, the differences from her family had, in a sense, worked in her favor, making it easier for her to adapt to difficulties and differences. Her parents' food was different from what the girl was given, and almost all the participants in the events were also predators. No one would make sacrifices for Leopard Jr., and she had long been accustomed to this attitude. The man spoke up, saying that the heroine had to learn to behave differently and not adapt to anyone. For the lamb, demanding that her family adapt to her lifestyle was a horror. At that time, the lady thought it would be easier to have a different pedigree. As a child, she wanted to believe that she was adopted. In any case, the child did not realize what reality was, so she allowed herself to believe her parents. The heroine was very lonely. It seemed that she had no one to talk to. As a child, Lucy thought that everything was bad and that if her family ended up on a desert island, she would be the first to be eaten. The blue-eyed girl noticed the blonde man's strange look. Obviously, she had started a conversation that was too serious. The man nodded and said something the heroine did not expect. He asked her to smile and move past the bad things. Roman took a bite of salad, chewed it with difficulty, and said it wasn't too bad. When the lady said most, she meant that even her friend couldn't eat like that for the rest of his life. Dogs are omnivorous, the man recalled a saying to illustrate his point. Roman said that even if he and Lucy ended up on the island, they would be able to get along just fine together. The little girl waved her hand dismissively. The party seemed to be coming to an end and they should return to the hall. Someone knocked on the door, and Mother Leopard appeared on the threshold, asking if her daughter was there. The beauty was frightened and backed away. They couldn't have expected anyone to notice their absence from the hall. The carriage drove down the dark street. Silence hung inside. The girl's parents looked worried. When the woman entered the room, Lucy immediately tried to justify herself, explaining that her friend was with her. The brunette quickly ushered the blonde out, reminding him that his brothers were probably waiting for him. Leopardi realized that the child was from the Baskerville family, and in the carriage, she decided to strike up a conversation after all. The little girl sincerely hoped that her mother would not think badly of Roman because of the situation. For the first time in 15 years, the lady had an attentive friend who was also kind. Despite her daughter's feelings, she was told that, no matter what, they were alone in a room together, and it didn't look good from the outside. The blonde wanted to say the young man's surname, but she was interrupted. She didn't think about what others would think. If they wanted to say something to her, she wouldn't listen. Lucy was dating Roman, not his parents. The young man approached her first, without paying attention to her appearance, and she liked him very much. The couple exchanged glances. The father nodded. It seemed they understood that it didn't matter to friends what kind of families they came from. Lucy's mother reminded her that this rule only applied to friends, nothing more. Lying on her bed, the girl thought about how she knew nothing about Roman, not even his favorite food or hobbies. To the beauty, the young man seemed like a complete stranger. Perhaps she should have asked him a few questions. The blue-eyed girl didn't try to get to know him better, and now she regrets it. She thinks she is boring to others. The lady knows a little bit. The man's name is Roman, and it seems he doesn't have a very good relationship with his father, as well as his two older brothers. The lady was too selfish. All she did was fold origami. She promises herself that next time she will ask more questions. She will definitely have to apologize, because they didn't listen to the boy, and he looked surprised at the time. At the banquet, the heroine made several mistakes. Roman was nowhere to be found. He had suddenly disappeared somewhere. The brunette began to worry that her friend would not show up. She should have at least found out where he lived. Someone put a hand on the girl's shoulder. She jumped up, turned around, and immediately introduced herself. Standing in front of the beauty was a man who looked like a dog. He smiled, and it turned out to be Roman's brother. Harold said his last name was Baskerville, and the heroine blinked in surprise, beginning to realize the reality of the situation. That family was on bad terms with the Leopards, and the girl had seen her parents suffer many times because of their struggle with them. From a political point of view, they were fierce opponents of each other. Come to think of it, the lady didn't insult the Baskervilles, but she did talk about them in a really weird way, and in front of Roman too. Before that, the boy called himself a dog, and many questions were spinning in her head. It was strange that the young man decided to lie to her. The blue-eyed woman realized that her parents also knew who their daughter's new friend belonged to, which is why they behaved that way. The woman began to feel angry. The wolf's offspring had betrayed her, and she had trusted him. Of course, the point is not that the young man did not tell her anything, but that he decided to lie instead. The lady doesn't understand who the person she has trusted all this time really is, and she feels disappointed. The girl told her new friend something she had never told anyone else, and the realization really hurts her. Harold asks if Lucy had measles. Roman caught the disease somewhere, which is why he is staying at home. This is strange for the blonde man, because their family always takes every precaution. The girl began to worry. Looking into his eyes, she asks if Roman is really that sick, but it turns out he is on the mend. The man suggests visiting his brother, as Lucy may have a strong immune system. She had never visited her friends before, so this was something completely new to her. The heroine couldn't believe it when she heard that Roman missed her very much, and the fact that she had been invited by the Baskervilles was extremely embarrassing. Harold approached the beauty's parents to ask them to let Lucy go, explaining that there was nothing to worry about. The couple exchanged glances, looking a little sad as they still had some internal doubts. The girl asked if she could go, saying she really wanted to see Roman and that the most important thing was that the boy missed her. Even if the relationship between the families was not the best, it still meant something. Her father nodded. Friends are very important, but it's better to come home early and not stay out late. The heroine remembered the story of the Baskervilles. She had been told about it before. When the head of the family's wife died, the grief-stricken man went to live in seclusion for 10 years. The eldest son runs the family business, and Harold is the second eldest and is responsible for the household. The heroine had heard that the younger brother had not been introduced to society, and she had not known him personally before. It seemed that the young man was younger than Lucy, which is why he had introduced himself so late, but she could not even imagine that this person was Roman. Of course, Ligeia didn't want to offend anyone, but her new friend really was a complete dog. The heroine still had many questions, and she kept thinking about why she had been deceived and whether there was a reason for it. Realizing too late, the girl understood that she was going to the Baskerville estate empty-handed. Harold laughed, assuring her that everything was fine. Nothing would happen if she didn't bring anything material. If the brunette really wanted to cheer up her friend, she could tell him what she had told her parents. Half an hour later, the carriage arrived at its destination, and the girl entered the residence, looking around with interest. Harold suggested sneaking into the room, since Lucy was his secret gift, and the girl snorted. The man knocked on the door, asking if his brother was asleep, and Baskerville asked if he had the right to enter. The young man said he would go for dessert, offering the lamb to go first. The maiden opened the door and a pillow flew at her. Her face instantly reddened, and only then did the man realize who he had hit with the object. With tears in his eyes, the boys are visibly upset. He does not understand how his girlfriend ended up at his house. The young man asks if Lucy is okay, but she just sinks to the floor and puts her hands to her face, making a plaintive sound. The brunette does not answer the question, and the blonde continues to sincerely apologize, saying he never wanted things to end this way. When the heroine lowers her hand, the wolf examines her nose, and Leopard, without hesitation, grabs a pillow. The girl begins to beat the young man, shouting that he deceived her. Until now, the lady could not understand how he introduced himself as a dog instead of a wolf. The young man covered his face with his hands, trying to protect himself from the blows, but she had no intention of stopping. Until the very end, the hero asks her to listen to him, explaining that he had his reasons for not being honest. Roman's brothers entered the room, dessert in hand, and froze with surprised expressions on their faces. The girl realizes how it looks from the outside. At that moment, she meets Alexander Baskerville. It's an unfortunate moment. The blue-eyed girl was frightened, hoping that her actions would not provoke a fight between the families. Harold came closer, asking why the lady had stopped. He thought it would be better to strike another blow, but harder. Roman shouted, asking why he had brought Lucy, but his brother seemed not to hear him, continuing to encourage the lamb. Wolf takes Alexander with him. They brought dessert, so they are going to leave, simply so as not to disturb anyone else. The girl is determined, and the guy plaintively reminds her that he is a patient and needs peace and quiet. Calming down a little, the beauty asks the same question again, interested in the reason for the lie. Roman almost cried, asking why they called him by his last name. He didn't like it. The girl stood up. She could clearly hear the howling of wolves, which once again confirmed the child's origins. The lady couldn't stop thinking about how she had disgraced herself in front of Roman's brothers and hadn't even apologized. As a member of the leopard family, she admits that she behaved quite rudely, and that was wrong. The sounds of sobbing began to annoy her. The young man had done nothing good. It was Lucy who should be crying. In order not to upset the young man any further, Leopardi asks him to come over and sit down at the table. Sitting down carefully, the blonde boy, avoiding eye contact, asks if they hate him. The lady suggests that it's because he's ugly. Hearing this, the blonde man began to cry even harder than before. He couldn't calm down, and his howling grew even louder. The brunette couldn't tell if the man was crying like a dog or a wolf, or something in between, so she had to come closer and try to calm him down. The girl had also had measles when she was 7, but she was actually joking because she didn't think her friend was ugly. In any case, it would be better for the guy not to hide his face when they talk. She had to ask if her friend hated wolves. Roman seriously thought that they were angry with him because of his origins. The blue-eyed girl didn't understand why they had said something like that to her. She just didn't want them to hide anything from her. On that balcony, the lady shared all her experiences. They wanted to mock her when they deceived her. Now the heroine thinks that they spoke to her out of pity or because of her unusual appearance. Everything is real. Roman stood up and assured her that this was not the case, that he had his reasons, and they were very different from what had been said. The blonde stumbles when he tries to explain himself. The relationship between the families is not very good. The man wanted to look good in the eyes of the one he liked, but wolves and sheep are usually incompatible. The heroine couldn't hold back her laughter. She said she didn't feel any difference between them. No matter who Roman was, the lady wouldn't have said anything. He chose the dog because they are more friendly. In fact, Baskerville has no idea why he did that, but it was only once. He deserves forgiveness. The girl reached out to touch her friend's head, but he asked her not to, because he was not thinking clearly due to his illness. It seems as if what is happening is some kind of dream. Lucy couldn't be in his house, in his room. The smile on her face was so warm that it made the young man feel good. She asked when her friend would get better. In any case, everything should be fine. He was already on the mend, and soon the couple would be able to spend time together again. The blue-eyed girl is genuinely happy that they have seen each other. Roman realizes something and asks how the lady ended up at his estate. Mr. Harold brought the girl, saying it would be a New Year's gift. The hero is angry with his brother. He shouldn't have done that. It is clear that the middle brother has a lot of influence in both business and politics, but in Roman's eyes, he is just a madman. They are friends. It was nice to meet the Baskerville family, and the man also said that his younger brother had talked a lot about Lucy. The girl asked him to stop lying. He should have said from the beginning that he didn't say anything bad. Harold did not convey anything. He simply said that the illness would pass if a loved one visited his brother. Obviously, the young man was right when he said that the boy had measles. Hearing this, Roman turned away strangely, exhaling with disappointment. The brunette could only guess that the gentleman had said something strange to him. She had no other ideas. The girl decided to change the subject. They were still friends, so she wanted to know more details about his life. The hero said that he didn't have any things that he particularly liked, except for sword games. Lucy almost interrogated him, saying that if the boy didn't like it, he had the right to ask questions in return, so that everything would be fair. During the conversation, it turned out that neither of them had any other friends. Lepardi was the first to respond. The girl didn't find the question offensive. She had long been used to it and decided to ask Roman the same thing. The guy replied that he really considered the beauty his best friend. Then it was time for another question, and the heroine asked for his contact details. When the man has fully recovered, the woman asks to meet somewhere outside the banquet hall. Alexander came into the room and asked to speak to the lady, although she understood that this would not lead to anything good. The man's expression was frightening enough, and the girl did not know how to behave so that nothing would happen. The blue-eyed girl assumes that the fact that she hit her friend with a pillow has led to a conflict. The blonde man began to speak, thanking Lucy for coming to visit, and informing her that her parents had already sent a carriage for her. It was time for the young man to say goodbye, and all three went out into the courtyard to head for the gate leading to the estate. Roman said that his brother had a girlfriend, and it turned out that the lamb had known this all along. The maiden said that status or family meant nothing to her, but it seemed she had misspoken a little. When it comes to the Baskervilles, people are interested in who they marry, and everyone knows that Alexander is dating someone who is not of noble birth. Their family is known for the fact that none of them are going to marry by arrangement, and there are many rumors surrounding them. The girl realizes that she knows all the details, precisely because of the numerous rumors. Roman asked what was going on, and the beauty admitted that she really liked the guy. He was very cute. Before his friend leaves, the guy hands her a stuffed lamb that he happened to see at the market. The young man waves his hand. They will meet very soon. He promises that he will definitely contact the lady. Despite the fact that the Baskervilles marry for love, only wolves are ever born. The family is known for never having had any illegitimate children. Only males are born there. The blue-eyed girl noticed that all three looked alike, like matryoshka dolls of different sizes. The maiden looks at the toy. She came to visit empty-handed and now returns with a gift. The baby is as soft as Roman's hair, and she enjoys touching him. After the New Year holidays, the young man had completely recovered and he and Lucy met almost immediately. His hair has changed a little. It has grown, and the girl confirmed that she likes him even more now. The young man smiled, remembering that he had said he didn't know how to ride a horse. The girl volunteered to teach him, deciding that it would be easier for everyone that way. Once they were on the horses, the young people galloped forward. On the way, the heroine explains how to ride correctly, and her friend quickly grasps the technique, demonstrating excellent motor skills. The brunette begins to suspect something is wrong. It doesn't seem like what he said about riding was true. Lucy wanted to see the young man trembling like a lamb, but she likes having fun together even more. The girl showed a few more tricks, which seemed perfect from the outside. It was all over. The horses stopped to rest a bit, and the guys went to drink tea. The hero admitted that he was actually nervous. It was their first time meeting outside of the gym, so it was a little awkward. The blonde guy didn't think it would be boring. He wanted to say something else, but it was really hard for him to put into words. The hero was a little worried that the lady might be bored with him. He didn't want anything to go wrong. The day before the trip, the woman carefully studied everything, trying to understand what Roman would like. The lady insisted too strongly on going horse riding. She had never done any other sports. The girl wanted to say something else, but the break was over, so it was better to go and ride again. The children rushed forward again, and Lucy couldn't hold back her happy smile. She suggested they have fun again next time. The fact that the heroine had made her first friend was a huge event. She had never known that it could be so much fun. Roman had no idea how grateful Leopard was to him. She felt the most sincere feelings. After several meetings, she and Baskerville became inseparable, a combination that seemed a little unusual. No one knows how strange the new world is. The maiden wished that everyone were the same, without horns, scales, or tails. Sometimes the lady thought more than usual, believing that perhaps somewhere there was another world, a better one. As long as the beauty did not pay attention to pedigree, she liked Roman more and more each time. The girl especially liked the guy's tail, which he wagged every time to show his joy. The heroine never doubted her friend. Baskerville was very dear to her light heart. However, one day the blonde asked a strange question. He wanted to know if Lucy was causing any inconvenience. The girl was worried, so she suggested writing a letter with the family seal to change something. Of all the people the blue-eyed girl knew, Baskerville Jr. was the kindest wolf, and the lady truly considered them friends. In the girl's opinion, she was looking at the kindest and most wonderful man, and the hero sighed sadly. The boy wanted to confess that, as it turned out, he was only kind to his girlfriend, and the girl laughed in response, saying that she was the opposite. He had to apologize, the whole reason being that she was a sheep. The heroine suggested that Roman only liked her because she was born a sheep, as there was no one else like her in the entire banquet hall. No matter who the lady was born as, Baskerville would still like her, but now she is in her best form. In addition to all his other qualities, the young man revealed himself to be very sensitive, and she hoped that their friendship would last forever. The man had to promise that even when they grew up, they would still stay together forever. The sad expression on his face was for a reason. A few days ago, the young man had a conversation with his brothers. Baskerville asked him to admit that what had happened was considered a family disgrace. Roman had turned 16, and all he did was fold origami and ride at the racetrack. Harold remembers well how, before the date, the young man had been riding horses all night long, so as not to look completely foolish. His brother didn't tell anyone, thinking it would be better to hide from everyone else. Roman shouldn't be so careless. Lucy knows that he is in love with her, but she continues to ignore him. The young man did not think that all this was connected. He was just trying to give some sensible advice. Unable to take it anymore, the main character asked them to be quiet, but of course they don't listen to him. His words are only meant to make his brother finally take off his rose-coloured glasses. If the boy continues to play these games with love, he will end up walking around like a dog that has been abandoned by its owner. For some reason, Alexander remembered that this reminded him of the day when Harold kicked Rohannes out, deciding to get rid of him for good. His older brother asked him to calm down and think about something else. At least Lucy agreed to go on a date with Roman. She was nervous and came to visit him. The young man guessed that if Rohannes became the happiness of the Baskerville family, the youngest would jump out of the window with joy. Finally, the man couldn't take it anymore. He stood up and asked what his brother was hinting at. They love her. She just hasn't admitted it to herself yet. Harold meant that he wanted to get his beloved's consent, that he should ask for help, and take off his rose-coloured glasses. Rohan did not like his friend. They often played together as children, which is why they developed a normal, friendly attachment. A fight almost broke out in the carriage. Baskerville tried to achieve something with his words, but it did not have the desired effect. Alexander continued knitting his scarf. Paying no attention, Roman sighed and the boys started fighting again like street dogs. The young man was fed up with being Baskerville and a wolf. If he had been given a choice, he would never have chosen his family. He didn't like any of it. Wolves live in packs and spend their entire lives with only one partner, and there were hereditary diseases in the family. Everyone in the family had dark eyes and bright ears, weaker hearts than others, or less time to rest at night. The most terrible thing is on a mental level, a psychologically fatal flaw, nothing less than unbearable lovesickness. Life is long, but it is permissible to love only one person. There are many variables in the world, but this does not change the life of the Baskervilles. As a child, the boy was told that he would understand why loving one person is a weakness as soon as he grew up a little. No one in the world is like their family. The world is full of people who do not value love and only use it for their own purposes. Sometimes it is difficult for them because not everyone has the same desires as the Baskervilles, and it is sad to think about this. Roman will have to do many things before he becomes attractive in the eyes of everyone else, and it will take a long time. The young man should be more careful with his infatuations. Human feelings change very quickly. Harold, upon hearing that love is a weakness of their kind, froze in horror. In his opinion, it was a real curse. Even if one of them went through a lot of difficulties and made someone fall in love with them, it still wouldn't be a happy ending. Roman should enjoy the life he has while he has not yet truly loved anyone. The reason the boy's father was never home was because of him. After his birth, his mother's health had deteriorated significantly. The boy had long understood why his father hated him, and he was sorry that things had turned out that way. The hero continued to wonder what this love was and why it had such an effect on people. He wanted to understand. That same year, his mother passed away. Her body could not withstand the strain, and the head of the family locked himself in the winter cottage. The child had to go to his brothers to ask if they really hated him, and each time the questions were the same. Alexander asked him not to worry, repeating that when Roman fell in love with someone, he would finally understand everything. Then something else happened. Harold didn't know what to do. He wept because of his strong love for Rohannes. It was about the girl his brother had been friends with since childhood. They say that the family of white bears has produced many talented doctors. Alexander asked what had happened. Obviously the hero had no conscience at all, because before that he had constantly bullied and tormented the girl. The blonde continued to cry, shouting that he himself did not understand why he had behaved so terribly towards her. He knew it was wrong. The girl didn't like playing with other children, so Harold decided he could join her. Rohannes had a new man in his life, and it was destroying the wolf from within. He truly felt shattered. It was necessary to explain that if the young man did something wrong, it would be considered a crime. Be that as it may, the girl's family was small, just a group of people who had organized a medical association. Harold felt like he would die from not being able to see his beloved, while Roman watched all this with disgust. The blonde guy tried to ask if the brother really loved Rohannes. He shouldn't interfere with her. The blonde guy shouldn't have been provoked from the start. Then everything would have been easier. Alexander encourages this kind of thing, which makes it worse. Harold reacted too strangely, shouting and promising that he would see how his brother reacted when he fell in love. The man advised not to give himself away in front of him if Baskerville suddenly found the one, because otherwise it would be bad. Alexander, sitting on the mercy seat, began to laugh. For him, this moment was more cute than threatening. In the evening, before going to bed, the child began to ask questions because he really wanted to know if he was wrong about something. Of course, Harold loved Rohannes very much, but he did not want to admit it even to himself. He realized this too late. Because of his feelings, the young man hates the girl as much as he wants to possess her, and he is annoyed that she does not feel the same way. Love suffocates the Baskervilles. Roman didn't understand one thing: why everything was going well for Alexander, why his relationship was normal. He and Marcel had a pleasant and calm atmosphere, and the kid never noticed anything strange about it. Alexander was surprised that his brother seemed completely calm. Perhaps the young man knew nothing now, but that was another possibility. He would understand everything in time. Even if the boy did not want to be involved in all these stories, someday he would suffer a similar fate. And then the young man would understand that everything was not good at all, even from the outside. After that conversation, Harold was bedridden for a long time due to illness. Every night he howled, unable to bear all the tension that made him doubt even more. The blonde boy did not understand why his older brother was so upset. He cried as if his life was over. Roman thought he was different from his brothers because he did not think that love was something special. After a while, they decided to send the young man to a social gathering. Even though he didn't want to, they explained to him that sooner or later he would have to get used to society. But for some reason, all they heard from him were refusals. Harold didn't understand where the problem came from. His brother just needed to go there and back, and if someone asked him to dance, he could go home afterwards. The blonde grimaced when he was given even more advice. He admitted to himself that he really hated such things, but in any case there was no choice. Ironically, in a place that the guy thought he hated from the very beginning, he met someone new, a girl who was completely unknown to him on the one hand, but beautiful on the other. Love blossomed in his heart quite by accident. The hero himself did not have time to realize it. She appeared before him in a very sweet and attractive guise. That day, the young man understood the meaning of the word his brothers had always talked about. It was a feeling as if bells were ringing. The young man repeatedly received letters from girls who were in love with him. One of them blushed and couldn't look him in the eye, which prompted him to ask his family about it. For some reason, the hero was not sure if he would be able to understand when love came. He was worried that he would confuse his feelings with ordinary sympathy. Alexander explained in detail that if Roman was unable to find a normal explanation for his feelings, then it could not be love, as the Baskervilles never confused infatuation with friendship. At the banquet, the hero realized that there was no ambiguity at all. He looked at the brunette at the end of the hall with loving eyes. The boy asked Harold about the girl with horns. The girl turned out to be a mutant from the lion pride, from the leopard family, so there was definitely something wrong with her. The young man asked to be introduced to the lady, saying that he really wanted to meet her because she was like an angel, so pleasant and bright. The hero continued to insist, while Harold shouted that it was impossible. The man should have realized that he couldn't date Lucy. The blonde man did not give up. It would not make sense for him if he were not with that lady. A thought flashed through his mind that he should have started attending the parties earlier, while his brother was looking for Alexander. The boy decided that he would figure everything out on his own. The young man jumped up, urging himself to be bolder, to gather all his courage and talk to the beautiful girl. He couldn't let her get away. The boy managed to jump onto the balcony and greet the beauty, a silly smile on his face, feeling as if his heart would jump out of his chest at any moment. On the way home, Roman talked about nothing but Lucy, describing her in detail as the best person on the planet. Alexander asked what kind of family she came from. Harold replied sarcastically that the girl turned out to be a leopard mutant, born to the married couple Balzac and Sandy. The man asked if they were talking about the eldest daughter of the Lion Pride. It would be great if it wasn't her, but in the end it was her after all. His brother should have stopped the youngest. The blonde man began to make excuses, saying that it was impossible to do so because his brother had jumped forward faster than they could catch him. Baskerville is difficult to stop, especially when it comes to love. Now the bells were ringing in Roman's life, and he had to do everything carefully. But the boy dove headfirst into his feelings without thinking it through at all. The young man had always heard that the Lepardis were just a pretty facade, but nothing more. Nevertheless, they were a well-known political family, founded by the royal house of Edenvers. It was obvious that the boy would go down a thorny path. It was in his blood. Harold didn't know what to do. Perhaps there was some way to help him. Alexander nodded. At the very least, they could prevent a war from breaking out between the families. The dialogue would be difficult, but it had to be done right so as not to be sentenced to life imprisonment. The Baskervilles were not sure they could please Leopardi. They considered their political opponents to be nothing more than empty spaces. Even if the aristocracy and monarchy became merely nominal, class would remain unchanged forever. A political marriage is the only way out, but they do not want to become related, even if Lucy is a sheep. It is unclear how Leopardi came to have a hybrid child, but there is a legend that another lamb was once born into their pure bloodline. The eldest son of the Archduke, the Emperor's younger brother, fell in love with a sheep and gave up hope of finding someone better. She was perfect for him. In the end, the woman was never able to become part of the pride, but her children were accepted into it. They were all lions too, so there was no problem with that. If it hadn't been wartime, this would have been impossible. When Lucy was born, this family love story attracted a lot of attention. It all depends on the public. They love something interesting. After the birth of the lamb, marriages outside the pride were completely blocked. The romance didn't last. He decided to ask why the conversation turned to the lamb. Harold advises to open your eyes wider. Nothing can be done if that is the reality. In any case, it is unlikely that any family would want to tie themselves to Lucy, because no one would want another leopard to be born. Alexander still suggests trying to make an offer, but he is not at all sure that if something goes wrong, it will be seen as giving away his daughter for the benefit of the family. The two argue. Someone should have stopped Roman. The boy himself is tired of all these thoughts aloud. He wants them to finally leave him alone. The older brother turns to his younger brother again, saying that they need to understand what kind of person Lucy is, what qualities she has, and how that can help them. The blonde man thought for a moment, and an image of a woman smiling at him popped into his head. She was a very, very pretty girl, and she had always been that way. It was clear that the solution to the problem was not obvious. Baskerville Sr. planned to figure it out later. He realized that it would be impossible to do so in a single day. Roman spoke up, saying that he understood everything and would figure it out himself. The two of them should try not to interfere in this matter. Alexander nodded. The boy would do as he saw fit. Harold still tried to speak, but he was silenced. The youngest is still treated like a child, but he hopes that things will change over time. In any case, Lucy was really sweet. They said that love was cruel to the Baskervilles, but that wasn't true, because in reality it was gentle. The young man was still unsure whether a wolf could really love a sheep, which raised more and more questions for him, but he wanted to hope for the best outcome. The guys went hunting, as this is how they relieve stress. If they stay in the city all the time, they could go completely mad, and at this rate, nothing would work out. It would have been great if their father had joined them too. Roman was disappointed, but he should stop being so sensitive about the subject of family. The next prey was an elk. The young man tried to stop his brothers, but before he could, they shot the small animal and it fell to the ground. It was fun, but it also exhausted the wolves. Alexander noticed that the return trip would take a long time, So he suggested they have a snack without even lighting a fire. A single tear fell from the animal's eye. The young man froze and covered the prey's eyelids with his palm, realizing that he did not want to see it suffering. Harold asked why his brother had suddenly started doing such strange things, as he had never behaved like this before. The hero remained silent, not knowing how to respond because he did not understand his own sincere feelings. Out of nowhere, the blonde thought of Lucy, the one he cared for with all his heart. It was strange because Leopard was human, and the wolves were just having fun, nothing more. The hero was so happy for the first time, and was glad that he had been born. He asked when he and the girl would be able to see each other again, as social gatherings did not happen very often. The boy heard the answer that brought him to his senses. Events like this did not happen every day, so the lady did not know the answer. On the way home, Harold noticed that Roman was getting worse and worse. Well, when asked what the couple usually does, Roman smiled dreamily. They fold origami, which he considers the most ideal option. Alexander laughed, saying that it was, on the contrary, a lovely activity. Harold was angry. They had to find something else to do while he was trying his hardest to get the attention of the Leparier couple. The boy asked the elder Baskerville to organize an event in a week, and he nodded. Since his brother had fallen in love, no one was going to interfere. But despite this, Roman would still have to put in as much effort as he did with the other wolf. The young man disconnected from reality. His family almost got into another fight. All he could think about was the events that would be organized in the future. Everything would be organized just for Lucy. At the reception, the girl noticed that, by a happy coincidence, there were quite a few opportunities to see each other this month, and the heroine liked this arrangement. The wolf was glad that his girlfriend liked what was happening, and he continued to organize more and more events that helped them grow closer. Harold was furious. His brother continued to play childish games, while the family organized dozens of charity parties. Instead of giving a normal answer agreeing to exchange contact information with Lucy, the wolf announced that he was going to become a vegan, surely for a reason. Alexander tried to clarify that their pride was not herbivorous, and that the youngest was still growing up. Surely Leopard had said something to him. Turning away, the blonde shook his head. Harold waved his arms and asked why they were making him out to be an outcast who bullied the youngest. Roman lay on the bed, staring at one spot. After all, he was a predator and was afraid that the lamb was afraid of him. He sincerely hoped that despite everything, they would be more than friends in the future. The young man took the beautiful origami that his girlfriend had given him in his hand. Sometimes the lady reminds him of a sugar cookie, and he is afraid that his wolf instincts might cause her pain. The girl resembles a deer that the man hunted. A voice, unfamiliar yet familiar, whispers in his head that the hero loves the beauty so much that he is willing to do anything to get her. The young man's heart melts at the mere thought of her, but Lucy's heart is completely calm. This is wrong. The voice urges him to reveal his feelings to her, to possess her body and soul, her flesh and even her heart. The guy finds it harder to breathe. He doesn't understand how to control himself. His condition worsens. His brothers come running at the sounds, not understanding what is happening. Seeing Roman, Alexander immediately understood that the period had begun. The two approached, trying to examine the young man. It soon became clear that the man was sweating and was not himself. He needed to try to pull himself together. Choking back tears, the blonde asks what is wrong with him. The pain spread throughout his body, preventing him from breathing calmly, creating the feeling that death was near. Thoughts swirled in his head, all of them forcing him to feel every moment, with Lucy standing before his eyes. The only desire the young man feels is to lock the girl away somewhere far from other people. He wants to protect her and rule over her. Tears stream from his eyes. If the lady does not love him, his life will be over. His brothers don't understand what to do with their younger sibling. He clearly needs help. Alexander calmly says that everything will be fine, that the pain is probably related to his body growing, and that everyone goes through this stage before they fully mature. Everyone in the family has gone through the same thing. They understand how Roman feels now, so they pity him even more. There is no one on earth who could understand this better than the Baskervilles. The terrible illness, which seemed to be tearing his body apart, lasted several days. Alexander explained that he had also suffered in this way, but the brothers were too young to remember it. The man had to go through everything on his own, so it was very lonely. In the end, growing up was not something that was impossible to go through. Roman did not understand that Marcel loved his significant other. The blonde asked him to listen. Sometimes he imagines that he has absolutely no idea what love is, that he has no idea who the person is who has always shown him the utmost love. Harold should know that someone else's love fades too quickly, almost before your eyes, and it is worth fearing that even the feelings Marcel has for Alexander, which he idolizes so much, may one day disappear. The young man does not know what to do if one day the lady says that she has found someone else and is leaving him. He worries that the girl might die in childbirth, or something even worse. Before meeting his beloved, the hero thought that this would never happen, but everything changed. The Baskervilles are pathologically obsessed with those they designate as their true love, and people will always seem like fragile Christmas tree decorations to them. In Roman's eyes, when he was a boy, the couple was perfect, but now he has learned that this was not entirely true. He had no idea that everything in this world was so complicated. Alexander always joked that no matter how beautiful Marcel was, it wasn't worth falling in love with her. When the younger Baskerville began to mature, he realized that his brother looked at his future wife the way he looked at Lucy. The man always had doubts. He was afraid that he would lose his beloved, become like his father, and live like an empty shell, counting the days until his death. Hero also felt vulnerable when he was alone. He wanted Rohannes to always love him and was ready to do anything for her to get her love. At the same time, the hero understood that he would never be able to win the girl's heart. It seemed to him that very soon his thoughts would consume him alive. On the contrary, he envied his brother's experiences. The hero began to realize that soon his dependence on Lucy would grow to the next level. He was scared, but soon the metamorphosis ended, and after a while the young man finally came to his senses. Hero Old laughs, even gasping for breath. The young man repeated the name of his beloved. It was sweet, but at the same time destructive. The hero offered to pass on a gift, but of course it was said in jest. Roman sternly ordered him to leave, and his brother pretended that everything was fine, even though it wasn't. The man was offered to invite Lucy to the Baskerville estate, but he refused. The blonde man recalled what had happened long ago. Their family had been cut off from political and economic proposals for marriage alliances for a long time, because it was impossible to predict when true love would come. Still, the hero felt terrible. He thought it would pass him by, but that didn't happen. The situation was hopeless. It was all like a mental illness, and Lucy must not find out under any circumstances. The man wanted to change everything, but it was unrealistic. Nevertheless, he wanted to possess the girl. Most likely the lady would begin to fear him, and then even their friendly relationship would be destroyed. A day later, Baskerville visited Leopardi. It was only a brief visit, but the beauty's scent spread throughout the room, making him feel even better. Later, Harold came into the room and asked if his brother was grateful to him for bringing Lucy. The guy's mood was ruined because the blonde was hugging the mug his girlfriend had been drinking from, which was even stranger than expected. The man ordered the item to be returned, but received nothing. Baskerville couldn't stop thinking about Leopard, who had given him her contact details, so they now had the opportunity to see each other more often. In the morning, Harold informed Alexander that the youngest intended to buy another racetrack in addition to the one they already had. Instead of getting upset, The head of the family noted that they could simply give him their consent. It was not worth standing in the way of the true love that the hero felt. In a sense, Baskerville agreed, but he understood that if they continued in the same vein, they would completely ruin Roman, and it was frightening to imagine what would happen next. If the young man started dating Lucy, the family would go bankrupt, and the only positive thing in this story would be that the blonde would finally be even happier. Several more days passed, dragging on extremely slowly. Harold once again told Roman that he had warned him about the dangers of a relationship with Leopardy. The man noticed that his brother had big problems, that he would not be able to escape so easily now. Roman was angry. He saw his relative as a dog that wagged its tail whenever Rohanna said a word. The blonde man cannot simply remain heartbroken. It does not work that way, especially since he cannot marry just any woman. He will only be able to watch as Lucy finds happiness with someone else. Alexander, as usual, intervened at the right moment. Smiling, he asked if the middle one was talking about himself. The man began to shout, assuring him that his case was different, and that in any case, if no one in the family got married, they would all suffer the same fate. The young man showed his hand, displaying a wedding ring that sparkled in the light, and was immediately bombarded with silly questions. He had to explain that Marcel had made the first move, taking an important step. The blonde man smiled, pleased to understand what life awaited him. He and his future wife would marry next fall, as soon as she graduated from university. His brothers felt strange even though the news was joyful. When the guys arrived at the estate, Harold asked furtively if Alexander would annoy the guy if he disappeared one day. It would be clear whose doing it was, because every time he saw him like that, he felt the urge to kill him. Roman looked skeptical. He wouldn't have brought the package if the guy had gone to jail, because then he would have had to take over the family business. All because Harold doesn't get along with Rohannes at all. Hearing this, the blonde turns away. It seems that everything is fine with his brother. The younger brother realized that he is the only one who is suffering. The problem is that he and Lucy have been friends from the very beginning. Perhaps the feelings that are considered friendship interfere with sincere love. The man assures himself that everything is fine, because he still has a lot of time. He promises that he will make her love him, that everything will be fine. But soon the girl announced their breakup. The couple visited a new cafe that the lady had wanted to go to for a long time, but it was impossible to go there alone. It turned out that Roman became her lucky ticket to try a variety of desserts. The young man smiled and said that he really liked it, but he didn't say what exactly. The hero continued to explain that he was happy that they had managed to do something together for the first time. The girl nodded, and in that moment her friend seemed even more charming than usual, which brought her extraordinary joy. She forgot about the desserts. Her mind was on something else entirely. Her face flushed slightly. Roman always shows himself to be the most sensitive person. When a lady is next to a man, she no longer feels like there is something wrong with her. She becomes confident that she will be able to make friends with people like her. The heroine explained her desires to her parents, stating that in a few years she wanted to go to a simple public school in an environment where she now felt like a sheep in a void. The woman had already decided what she would choose. In that place, she wanted to live with the surname Hatman, not Leopard, Sophie Hatman, the name of the beauty's great-grandmother, from whom she had inherited her horns and whom the maiden remembered. The couple was more than understanding, as always, and the man was sorry that they did not understand the burden on their daughter's soul. Perhaps she thought she would find something she needed elsewhere. The woman turned to the little girl when Lucy asked her to find her a new school. Her mother chose the best one, as requested, looking for a place where hardly anyone would know the girl. The high school was located at a decent distance. The brunette looked at the letter and thought that if she went to a very distant place, then it was unclear what would happen to Roman. Lucy knew that they would keep in touch, but that might not be enough. The boy, like her, could make new friends and forget about each other. Fear gave her no peace. Of course, the beauty did not want everything to go downhill. She realized that she was jealous of the guy without even understanding it herself. In any case, the heroine had gone too far to turn back, and asking the wolf to go with her would not work either. The girl was distracted from her thoughts by the guy sitting opposite her. He noticed that the beauty hadn't said much all day. Remaining as silent as possible, the hero asked about tea, saying that if she wanted more, he could pour her some more. The girl shook her head. She had had enough to eat and drink. The wolf turned out to be more attentive than expected. He asked why the beauty was buying winter clothes, as if she was planning to leave somewhere in advance. The brunette realized that no one would go with her, but she wanted to ask if it would be great if Roman agreed to transfer to a new school. Pushing the thoughts aside, the lady laughed. She liked to do everything in advance. She asked what they would do next. The woman really understood that she couldn't part with her only friend. It was hard for her. But despite this, she couldn't find the courage to say that she would soon be leaving far away. When the day ended, the heroine ran into the room to fall onto the bed. Even on that day, she couldn't get anything done, and that seemed terrible to her. The blue-eyed girl realized that silence wouldn't delay the move. It was ridiculous to think so. The woman begged her parents to let her go, but now she herself didn't want to leave. Until now, her subconscious had been telling her that she should cancel the trip. She couldn't predict whether the news would upset her boyfriend. She actually wanted him to be friends only with her and no one else. The woman was so confused that her thoughts seemed to betray her alive. She wanted to hide and not go outside. She didn't believe that such things happened between friends. There was no one around to tell her if she liked her friend, whether such fears would arise. Perhaps Roman also had his doubts, but he didn't say anything, which made her even more afraid. The brunette wanted to scream. She really didn't know anything, although she should have told him everything over tea while she still had a chance to do so, rather than at the last moment. There was a knock at the door. It was Louis, who asked if he could come in. From the doorway, the young man asked if his sister had met with Baskerville again. He asked if she had told him that she was leaving soon. It wasn't something to hide. He didn't understand how she could leave without saying a word. The blue-eyed girl waved him off. She was not in the mood to take advice from someone who didn't understand anything himself. The maiden believed that she would sort out her own affairs, but Liphadier was still worried and asked if she and the wolf were really friends. When the hero did not receive an answer, he slumped a little. A strange feeling arose inside him. He did not like the Baskerville family. Perhaps her parents allowed the lamb to attend school in the province precisely because their daughter was becoming very close to an undesirable person. The lady did not understand. The words seemed forced. The blonde continued. His sister said that the wolf himself unexpectedly spoke to her in the banquet hall. He was the first to approach the balcony. He did not do it because she was leopardy. The maiden smiled. It seemed that Louis was simply interested in what his sister thought about the problems that so worried their parents. The young man lowered his head sadly. He noticed that everyone had long known that the Baskerville family was dangerous, that it was not worth being afraid or hiding when there were good people around. But Lucy would be left with Roman all alone, and that was not right. The heroine shook her head, amused by the absurdity of the situation they had accidentally found themselves in. The man was naive and kind, like a dog, and he certainly couldn't be dangerous. The blonde man looked at her maliciously. Everyone knew the rumors about the Baskervilles, and he was still not sure that the couple were really just friends and not dating. For her, the relationship could have consequences, and not the best ones. The girl asked again. In the end, no one ever knows how things will turn out. The boy had long noticed that Baskerville treated his friend like his girlfriend, constantly hanging around her like more than just an acquaintance who had decided to spend more time together. The blue-eyed woman didn't understand again. Her brother must have gone mad. He reminds her that the wolf family is known for always taking whatever they want. They are particularly obsessed with romantic relationships, which ensure them a happy life. The woman never cared about rumors, so she was against the guy continuing to talk about it. Leopard was shocked by the answer. You can't remain blind to what's happening just because you trust your friend. That's not quite right. Not so long ago, complete chaos reigned in the wolf clan. In order to get one lady, they burned entire provinces to the ground or betrayed their ruler. The family is ready to destroy everything for love. This is their final understanding. They see no other way out. The family tree is passed down by inheritance. It's not even up for discussion. Everyone knows it. Every generation says it's a mental illness. Moreover, everyone there is just a wolf, a predator, the most terrible kind. Louis did not want to doubt his sister's friend until the very end. He tried to convince himself that everything would be fine, but finally gave up. The two are very much like a couple in love. It is high time to draw a line so that the relationship remains purely friendly. Everyone in high society does nothing but discuss this problem. Lucy had to be prepared for the possibility that if Baskerville really fell in love with her, she would need to have some kind of plan, some kind of strategy. The woman listened but couldn't say anything in response. She felt uneasy. Finally, her thoughts came together and the brunette began to shout. Obviously, Leopardy is trying to say that her friend is crazy, and she herself is the one who knows nothing about it, although Roman is normal. Based on rumors, it is considered better to stay away from him. All this is too much pressure. Louis is worried because his sister is involved in the relationship, but he also tries to explain that he was thinking about something else. The wolf is Lucy's first friend. He is very important to her. No one knows as much about him as the lady does. The lion probably doesn't even know his own family. The woman lowers her head into her hands, unable to stop crying. Perhaps all this will lead to the young man soon believing the rumors spread about the lamb, even though they are not true. The blonde man began to worry. He declared even louder that he had simply explained it wrong, that in reality it was not so important. The man was truly worried about his sister, because she was so fragile and needed to be looked after more. Everything has reached a point of no return. The beauty lowers her voice and asks her brother to leave her room. She is going to sleep and does not want anyone to disturb her. The hero gets up and leaves. He does not understand the girl. Even if she changes her last name or moves to another place, she will still remain close to him. Silence hung in the room, the boy's words replaying in her head, stuck there too strongly. It all started because of the rumors about the Baskervilles. Because of them, Roman and Lucy look like a couple in the eyes of others. The maiden does not know if the young man faces this every time he makes a new friend. Now it was clear why the young man had hidden his surname and remained like someone from the dog family. It was very similar to how the girl had decided to leave, taking her great-grandmother's surname. In a sense, the lady felt sorry for the man. He deserved better treatment in society. Time passed, relentlessly rushing forward, and finally summer arrived. The school year came to an end and the heroine attended her last class, which made it clear that only open doors lay ahead. The teacher reminded them that if a person does not have the courage to lose everything, they will not achieve anything. He encouraged the students to live as if they all had the heart of a lion, ready to take the blow. The brunette approached the table in the auditorium, a certificate in her hands, her eyes sadly scanning the text. She was not sure if all her efforts could be confirmed by some piece of paper. Lucy still wasn't sure that she had tried hard enough to be outstanding. She had never approached anyone, afraid that they might hurt her. Perhaps it would be better for her to give up the idea of transferring to a public school and think about her future in a different direction. The woman did not understand what she would gain and what she would lose if she suddenly gave up her present. Later, the lady met Roman. She called him by his name simply to roll it off her tongue again. The guys came to the exhibition. The lady had heard that the place was popular, but it seemed that they had come anyway. The young man nodded, turning away. The lady thought again. Their outing really did resemble a date between two lovers. That's how it looked to others, and they couldn't be blamed for that. After all, it was all too complicated to understand. After the two had looked at the paintings, they decided to leave the gallery. The girl was holding a cup of tea in her hands. She thought for a long time before asking if the guy had someone he liked. She really seemed interested in this. Roman had been eating salad the whole time, but he was so surprised that he dropped his fork. The girl asked again if he was okay. He nodded, blushing slightly, but asked again because he hadn't quite heard what she had asked him. The heroine repeated her question again. The blonde man didn't understand why she was asking him this. He turned away slightly and began to get even more nervous. In his opinion, there was no such person who could appeal to him. The wolf asked if the lady had heard something like that from someone else. He was well aware of the rumors that constantly circulated in high society, but he still hoped that this was not the case. The lamb shook her head. No one had said anything, it was just thoughts in her head. The heroine smiled, trying to completely hide all her inner thoughts. Obviously, Roman had not yet found a girl he liked. The realization dawned on the beauty that this also meant that he was not even in love with his girlfriend. They really did have a normal, friendly relationship. The blonde guy brought his friend out of her trance. The wolf wanted to know what the beauty would say if she found out that there was someone he loved after all. He wanted the lady to tell him everything he wanted to know. The brunette thought for a second. She needed to formulate the question. The lamb can calmly say what she really thinks. She could congratulate the man because she really only asked out of curiosity. Nothing else interests her. The question seemed strange, but it wasn't. The girl didn't think her friend was crazy. Despite what people said about his family, she was still confident that she was friends with the best person. In the evening, the woman came home and immediately fell onto the bed, exhausted. The brunette is worried. She couldn't find the courage to tell him that she is leaving very soon. At this rate, the heroine will only tell him the news on the day of the move. There are too many thoughts in her head. The girl is not sure that Roman will not fall in love with someone else while his girlfriend is out of town. The beauty is afraid that if he falls in love with someone else, he will stop paying attention to her. Probably, if he finds a new lover, he will be ready to do anything for her. Lucy understands that the wolf will be much more attentive to the one he likes than to Leopard. Sympathy and love are definitely different things that cannot be compared with each other. One day, a man will find someone he values more than anyone else in the world. Roman will be happy. In this regard, the problem lies with Lucy. She shouldn't have even thought about it. Now she feels like she won't be able to tell him that she has to leave. She heard a noise from the street, got out of bed, and looked around. She didn't immediately understand what had happened, but soon realized that it would be easier to go to the window and open it. Roman was standing in the garden below the window. He waved his hand, greeting Lucy, and asked her to come downstairs so they could talk a little. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, and the woman did not understand why he could not wait a little longer, at least until morning, to meet her. She began to wonder if the wolf had run away from home or had a fight with his brothers. The young man asked about the weather as if they had no other topics to discuss. Silence fell, and he just wagged his tail and waited for the next question. The woman asked if Roman had done something that made him leave. The blonde man asked again, not understanding what this had to do with anything. If that wasn't the case, the brunette suggested that it would be better to forget about the subject and talk about something else. The man had his own motive for leaving. In fact, he decided it would be better to tell everything himself about the rumors circulating about his family in high society. They had already discussed them more than once, but not in such depth. Roman was very worried that the girl might hear something strange about the Baskerville family and suffer because of it. So without even trying to ask her directly, he simply wanted to make it easier for her. The story was not the most pleasant. The hero understood that perfectly well. but he also could no longer remain silent. When someone from his family fell in love, they ceased to distinguish between heaven and earth, and if they could not achieve reciprocity, the person would go mad or commit suicide. Barashka was frightened. She didn't know how to react to this information. The hero quickly responded, assuring her that what had just been said was nothing more than delusional nonsense, something intended to harm the Baskervilles. There is a reason why people say that their father, who lost their mother, has gone mad. Roman finds it repulsive to think that people have found a weakness and begun to exaggerate everything several times over without thinking about the consequences for the Wolf clan. The young man's older brother, Alexander, has also been in a relationship with a beautiful lady for several years. Crazy people full of problems cannot love and hide their mental illness at the same time. Leopard nodded, but said she hadn't heard anything like that. So now they could stop talking. It would probably be better that way. The man continued, saying with greater confidence that he was not going to marry by agreement. This was not the case. The young man believes that trading love is a disgusting occupation. No one has the right to do so. Lucy was taken aback. He wants to know if she feels the same way. The blue-eyed girl nodded. If she had to agree with him on one thing, it would be this. Even so, the heroine couldn't know what it was like to find her soulmate. In her family, marriages are arranged, so as soon as the girl was born, distant relatives she had never met immediately broke off the agreement, knowing that they didn't want a sheep in the family. Roman is one of those who dreams of a proper marriage based solely on love. The boy began to worry. In his eyes, it was a boring story. The girl shook her head. The words did not seem true. He also listened to the beauty when she talked about what had accumulated, so now they were on the same level of trust. Her hand gently reached for the top of the man's head to stroke him a little. The girl completely understands him. It is very difficult to be misunderstood because of your appearance or family. Some people go through similar problems. It is not easy for everyone. The blue-eyed girl still couldn't understand something. It turned out that her friend had come to see her at such a late hour just to tell her his story, but part of her soul didn't believe that was the real reason. The woman remembers the moment when they were talking in a cafe about what would happen if the young man fell in love with someone. The lady said that she should congratulate him, but in that case it would be untrue, because inside she had completely different feelings that she did not fully realize. The blonde guy brought her out of her trance, but it would have been better if those words had never been said. The wolf is afraid that the girl he genuinely likes will misunderstand everything because of the rumors circulating about his family, and she might get scared. In fact, the wolf has a loved one, he admits. He would like to say something else, but then he was interrupted. The lady revealed what she had been trying to hide inside herself all this time. She said that very soon she would be leaving far away. The heroine was bombarded with questions, and he was worried and did not understand where the girl was going. All this was unexpected for him, which confused him even more, so he demanded an explanation. Barashka began to speak, her voice trembling slightly, unable to hold back. She had transferred to a public school in the province, which was very far away, so they would not be able to see each other in the future. At that moment, her cowardly sheep blood made itself known. The girl had long since realized that she did not have a lion's heart. She had never had one. She had to continue and give detailed information. Of course, she planned to come during the holidays, but she should have let him know a little earlier. Disappointment was written on the young man's face, but even more so, genuine fear. The girl looked at him but said nothing more. She simply did not want to hear about his love in the courtyard, where they were destined to part. A quiet voice was heard again, asking why her friend was leaving. Barashka still couldn't get the voices out of her head that made it clear that Roman would forget her, because he had fallen in love with someone else. The man was still in despair. If he had known earlier that the lady was leaving, he might have been able to express himself before that. He suddenly understood, and his tone of voice changed in a second. Baskerville asked why he had been told at the very last second, since the decision to leave had been made long ago. It would have been better to say something a little earlier, thus doing both of them a favor. The woman replied honestly that she didn't know. She was really confused and had experienced the whole range of emotions possible in a month. But it seemed better to explain that even if she moved, it wouldn't change anything in their relationship. It turned out that the lady was leaving her noble family because she wanted to live freely. Before moving on to a new life, Lucy obviously decided to use Roman just to play around. She objects and reaches out her hand to stop the wolf, who has jumped up, but he pushes her hand away. When the beauty decided to leave, she should have thought at least a little about her friend. He doesn't understand her and is completely confused. Of course, the blame lay on the shoulders of the main character. She couldn't forgive herself. Jumping up after him, the girl shouted to stop him, which, of course, seemed impossible. The young man rushed away and the blue-eyed girl couldn't ask where he was going. It was too late to do anything. Her heart was beating so hard that it felt like it was going to jump out of her chest. Maybe the man loved her. She wasn't sure, but it still seemed like a delusion. Tears streamed from her eyes, showing how painful it was for the girl to realize that it was all over. The woman lost the opportunity to find out the answer to her silent question, perhaps forever. She shouldn't have done what she did. She should have explained the move in a calmer manner. The girl did not notice how she had reached the main gate leading to the estate, where Louis was already waiting for her. Seeing her figure, he immediately rushed forward. The boy thought that his sister had decided to run away and was very worried, as it was not safe to meet anyone on the street at such a late hour. The girl was asked to tell how it all happened. Yesterday, she and the man went for a walk, and that's where it all began. The heroine did not understand how to behave. It was strange to see him not as a friend. First of all, the lady asked to try kissing him. Barashka froze with wide eyes, but Emma thought it was normal because after the kiss they wouldn't feel awkward. The woman doesn't think it's strange. She now understands why Khalid smiled and laughed when they met in the morning. She reassured herself that the action was rational, and the blonde continued, asking her what feelings she had experienced at that moment. It didn't seem like she didn't like the kiss. Emma noticed her friend's lost look and assured her that their friendship would not change. Someone knocked on the door, distracting the pair. The woman didn't know who had come, but she was curious to open the door and find out. Emma got up to open it because a girl with an injured leg shouldn't be walking anywhere. She was surprised when she found herself at the doorstep. A wolf entered the room. The young man looked around and the main character froze, as she also did not expect him to come visit her. The man noticed the bandage on her leg and immediately became concerned. The blonde immediately explained that a window in the room had been broken and she had accidentally stepped on a shard. The rabbit did not understand how the young man knew where the lamb lived. He did not seem to hear her, just looked at her leg and sighed quietly with sadness. The girl thought for a moment and then said she was leaving. The man said he was sorry but didn't explain why. The moment was extremely awkward. Emma misunderstood everything, and the lamb tried to explain it to her but didn't have time because the lady quickly ran out the door. Only the two of them remained in the room. The heroine asked why her friend had come. He asked her to look at his cut. Apparently, the wound was deep. She could still smell the blood. The girl wanted to say something, but her friend acted much faster than words, picking her up in his arms and not allowing her to walk on her own. The blue-eyed girl began to scream, asking what he was doing, saying that if necessary she could go to the hospital herself. Roman carried the lady to the carriage, and she reproached him for worrying too much about trifles. The hero turned away. It was he who had broken the window in the room. The young man felt terrible. He thought his friend was unwell, so when he walked past, thinking she was asleep, he threw a small stone. He couldn't find the strength to tell the whole truth. Lucy looks at him with an enchanted gaze. It's obvious that the hero came yesterday because he was worried. The girl should accept payment for the hospital and the broken glass, The wolf suggests that she should also tell her parents. Her friend laughs. That's too much. The brother knows that some people need more time to calm down after a quarrel. It is better not to wait for a better time. Then everything will happen. Suddenly they will make up. The lady should tell the boy to be more careful at night. Maybe there will be some way. Roman stopped appearing in high society, and now, wherever Lucy went, she couldn't find him anywhere. The heroine no longer hid on the balcony. At the next event, the lady stood at the end of the hall and looked around, hoping that this time the man would come, at least like that. Her eyes were sad, and after an hour the lady began to realize that Roman would not show up again. Unfortunately, he had indeed decided never to see her again. The girl was distracted when a beautiful woman with dark hair appeared in front of Leopardie and asked if her friend remembered her. The brunette turned out to be Sue Kane. They had been in the same class before, and she had been the captain of the horse riding team. The girl liked how the lady trained, even though she was just an outside observer. The heroine was surprised. She thought the beauty wasn't interested in other people in the class. The blue-eyed girl chuckled quietly. It wasn't like that at all. The lady smiled and asked how Leopard had been doing all this time. Sue had to pluck up her courage to start a conversation, as there were rumors that the woman was actually rude to others. It was good that Kane approached her because they hadn't seen each other in a long time. She was interested in which high school she was going to attend. The heroine asked to be introduced to some people, thinking that maybe she would have time to make more friends. The brunette nodded. Lucy thanked her for coming over. She was actually having more fun than she had initially thought, and they both enjoyed talking. Kane had been wrong about the lady all along. She was much friendlier than she looked, and they would see each other again someday. The brunette said goodbye, telling her there was no need to apologize. Leopard had been wrong about herself before, so she couldn't judge others. The fact that the girl talked to Sue as if nothing had happened was, to some extent, thanks to Roman. She still wants to see him and apologize. The woman wonders what the young man is thinking and how he is doing. They haven't seen each other for so long that everything seems unreal. The time before her departure was inexorably running out, with only 2 weeks left, but the lady still refused to part with Baskerville so easily. The woman doesn't care about her pride. She writes another letter expressing her feelings, saying she would like to meet and say something. For Lucy, Roman was the only one, although it seemed that it didn't work that way with him. She tried not to think about his loved one. The girl came running to the next appointment with an envelope, where she met Alexander, her friend's older brother. The young man smiled, and the lady began with the most important thing. She was leaving in a few days, so she asked him to deliver a message. A thought arose in her mind that perhaps the hero had fallen ill again and was not attending the appointments because of this. The man nodded, promising to deliver the letter. The girl happily handed over the beautiful envelope. It was the end. She waited for him every night in the garden, still hoping for something. Roman never showed up. He was nowhere to be found. Unfortunately, all the beauty's hopes were in vain, and that was the worst part. On the last night before her departure, the woman waited again, and again they did not meet. Tears froze in her eyes, and her resentment grew. Until the very last moment, she couldn't believe that it would all end because of one small quarrel. In that case, it was unclear why friendship was necessary. The Roman she knew had disappeared somewhere. He never showed up, even though before he would have done everything in his power to see her again. The day arrived, and in the morning the heroine got up. Her parents helped her get ready, and the family said goodbye to Lucy by the carriage. The woman sadly realized that her friend no longer needed her, that they would never be able to meet again or restore their former relationship. Still, the girl understands that in this case, she must continue to live and find more friends with whom she can have fun. Lucy involuntarily recalled her meeting with Sue, who was surprised that they had spoken for the first time in so long, which brought her a lot of joy. Now, the girl goes by the surname Hatman, promising herself that she will be able to start with a clean slate and forget everything that happened in the past. The beauty arrived at her destination very soon. She looked around because it was empty. It seemed that the carriage had arrived too early. The blue-eyed girl is scared. She wants to run away somewhere, but she can't. She went inside, pulling out the chair she was going to sit on. Her head is full of thoughts. The girl was so sure, but now everything has changed. She doesn't understand if she can really make friends. Someone touches her shoulder. Behind her stands a rabbit, holding out a plate and asking if she wants a carrot. The only thing the lady didn't understand was why the brunette was sitting alone and not talking to anyone. The heroine froze. The blonde was very nice and inspired trust. The woman thanked her and said she would gladly eat everything. She introduced herself as Emma. Saying her name, the brunette nodded. The rabbit asked to touch her horns. She was really interested in them. The blonde sees such twisted horns for the first time. They are softer than they look. They resemble a fingernail. The girl laughs, asking how the lady takes care of them. Surely she applies cuticle cream. Emma's friend uses the same one, and she likes how the horns look after applying it. The beauty doesn't understand why her new acquaintance has such a surprised expression on her face. The blue-eyed girl remembers how in the past everyone pretended that the sheep didn't have horns. The woman asked to touch Emma's ears. Someone agreed, putting their suitcase on the table, and two people flinched. A handsome man with green hair asked for a carrot, too, to treat her, and the girl nodded and handed him a piece. As it turned out, the young man's name was Khalid, but he could be called Col. Emma guessed that he was a retriever. The brunette thought it was inappropriate to ask such questions, and the man smiled and suggested she guess the correct answer. The blonde didn't have too many options, so she suggested that her new acquaintance was a peacock, since he was a little fancy. The lamb watched closely when she said that the hero had better spit out his food, because if he ate it, he would get burned, and badly. There are no digestive enzymes in the proposed food, and the hero froze with wide eyes when asked if he was a snake. The green-eyed man quietly asked if they had met before, and the woman waved him off, saying she had just arrived and that couldn't be true. Emma started screaming. The snake treacherously put something in his mouth that he couldn't even eat. He should have said right away that he didn't want it. Khalid noticed that the lady's expression discriminated against snakes, and the little girl continued to say that what was happening confused her. If you tell a female rabbit that she has big ears, she won't like it. The blonde jumped closer, and the boy was about to start a fight on his first day at school. The green-eyed boy begged not to be beaten. He had a momentary lapse of reason. The rabbit was right about something, she continued, saying it was better to use your brain when you were going to say something. The teacher entered the room. He is a raccoon, which seems to surprise the main character. The girl looks around to see more of her classmates. An elk with beautiful white antlers is sitting at the first desk. It turns out that she is not the only one like that at school, which makes her smile a little with understanding. The girl exhales, and in a second it becomes easier for her to breathe. This never happened at the previous school she attended. Her gaze shifted to the window, her awareness continuing to close. The maiden considered only a small part of the extraordinary landscape. At lunch, the beauty is shocked to see a table full of vegan food, feeling as if she has entered another world. Emma found Lucy and suggested they have lunch together. The woman nodded, happy to be near her. The blonde pointed to the apples on the nearest plate and offered to bring her friend some too. The heroine still doesn't fully understand everything. She really thought that without Roman, she wouldn't be able to make friends with anyone, but now she has friends. Khalid approaches, his plate laden with carrots, fruit, and berries. Emma maliciously asks if the young man is going to eat all of it, and he says no. The green-haired boy just wanted to eat with the people he liked, and he was asked why he didn't eat with other people at school. The blonde was instantly accused of being racist, and she began to stutter, realizing that she shouldn't have behaved that way. Lucy didn't mind, but the rabbit was still disgusted. As far as she knew, there was a prestigious school for snakes, and that was what his parents wanted. All the lady thinks is prejudice. There's no point in going to an expensive school when you don't have to pay. Kaylee didn't stop using words as loud as prejudice. The lamb's gaze shifted to the plate with a piece of fish and some kind of side dish. She realized that the young man would certainly not be satisfied with this. She remembered Sue, who also ate similar food, as well as fried pork. The hero, noticing her gaze, put his finger to his lips, and the brunette understood that there were reasons for this, so she decided not to ask any more questions. Emma wanted to know where Lucy came from, and she answered without hesitation, "From the capital." Of course, the lady did not expect any further questions. It's hard to believe that the heroine ended up in such a remote place. The girl moved to where her great-grandmother used to live, which is a kind of homeland. It's good that the lady decided to come after all. Khalid asked what the next lesson is. He wanted to sit at the desk in front of his friends. The blonde looks at the man skeptically. She doesn't think it's necessary to do so after all. The young man has other friends. Khalid replied that he has no one at his new school. Emma was asked if she really dislikes him so much, but the heroine couldn't answer. The girl thought about using cuticle cream to rub on her horns, hoping to find at least one friend with horns. After the lady applied the oil, she realized that the horns seemed to have softened. At least the sweet smell was everywhere. The heroine did not immediately realize that the smell was coming from her. Emma approached to talk. Her words would not be misunderstood, but she had to be listened to. The lambs gave off such a scent that she wanted to bite or even eat them in one go, and the girl's eyes widened in surprise at what she had said. Obviously, her friend was trying to pay her a compliment, but it embarrassed the lady a little. She wasn't sure if she should have used the cream. It turned out that the brunette had bought a special oil for predators. She didn't understand this right away. Obviously, things weren't so simple in the store. The girl explained that she was buying something like this for the first time, so she didn't really understand it yet. The lady didn't know that it was so serious, but as soon as she walked by, all eyes were on her. Carl didn't see a problem. The smell wasn't bad to him. Emma explained that the cream was the same as the barbecue cream they put on their hair, and that their hair smelled like that every day. Zemay changed his mind, stating that the beauty should have read the instructions carefully before buying it. The brunette nodded, saying she needed to replace it with an unscented one. Emma hears the lamb condemning herself, so she tries to reassure her that everyone will soon forget about the embarrassing incident, while Khalid laughs. The green-eyed man continues to think about the barbecue sauce. He needs to check all the perfumes he has at home and throw away everything he doesn't need. Emma says that it's like sauce, so it's better to get rid of it, but she also thinks that there's no point in throwing it away, since the snake can't smell anything like that. The young man doesn't use perfume just for his own pleasure. He asked if his girlfriend could smell the floral scent. She clarified whether she was referring to edible flowers or not, which the man did not know because he is a carnivore in any case. The green-eyed man noted that it was not surprising that he did not know this, and he asked Lucy if she had also only found out about it when someone told her. The girl nodded. She didn't know, but she didn't want to get attention from others. Emma went on to say that everyone would soon forget what had happened. The lamb continued to think, too many thoughts. She didn't know that smells are perceived differently depending on one's ancestry. The girl always tried to match the other side of her personality. Time flew by unnoticed, homework was replaced by exams, and then the semester ended. The blue-eyed girl came to the public school because she wanted to blend in with the crowd. But for some reason, she felt like her heart was about to break into pieces. Her thoughts returned to Roman Baskerville, and she wondered if the young man had confessed his feelings to the lady he liked so much. Emma distracted Lucy by asking what she was thinking about. Winter break was coming soon, and the girl wanted to know how the beauty would spend it. The lady's house was too far away, so the heroine was going to stay at school. In fact, the girl was afraid of something else. She knew that if she went to the capital, she would think too much about her ex-boyfriend. The blonde invited her to her place because her friends really wanted to meet him. Khalid said he also wanted to go there. The girl froze. She didn't want that. The two began to argue, although the young man continued to smile. The rabbit is funny, but it seems that she really dislikes her friend. It's not that she hates him, it's just that the lady finds it difficult to communicate with him. The blue-eyed girl writes something on a piece of paper. She still can't believe that Roman has decided never to talk to her again. I wonder if her heart will ache just as much if she quarrels with her friends. Tears well up in her eyes again. The heroine can't believe how a man could not write to her, as if they had forgotten each other. The lady is not sure if they were even acquainted. Soon Emma shared the news that a new student had transferred to the school, even though the holidays were coming up. Maybe it was done to isolate him. The rabbit doesn't believe that a child from a wealthy family would willingly come to a regular school. Either his relatives hate him or he is illegitimate. Lucy guessed who they were talking about, and the lady immediately jumped up. They tried to stop her, but the beauty said nothing. The woman runs down the corridor, not knowing where to go. The girl decides that she will not wait any longer, but she herself has betrayed her principles. Even if Roman arrived, the heroine decided that she would never wait for him again. She didn't know if they would be able to reconcile, and it wasn't worth hoping for anything. Stopping, the lamb began to realize more and more that the wolf could not have come from the capital just for the sake of his ex-girlfriend. She heard a painfully familiar voice. Lucy turned around, and there was that very man standing in front of her, asking why the girl was frozen in place. Approaching her, the blonde man asked her to come closer and hug him like before, as if nothing had happened between them. He really missed Leopard. Baskerville knew that the girl hadn't seen him in a long time and had been thinking about him constantly. He approached her and gently hugged her, inhaling the scent of her hair. The young man is right, as usual. The girl really missed him so much that she wanted to see him no matter what. The brunette doesn't understand how it will all end. She promised herself she wouldn't think about her past anymore, but she really couldn't keep her promise. The blue-eyed girl repeats that she has missed him terribly, her gaze fixed on his tail. Roman does not wag it. He is different from the person she once knew. Stepping back, the main character calmly asks why he hasn't contacted her all this time, and the young man turns away. He has no real reason, so he simply replies that he was too busy. The girl doesn't know how to react. Continuing, the hero notes again that they haven't seen each other in a long time, and that this has left its mark. The man looked at the school map, but didn't understand anything, so he asked the girl to give him a short tour. She nods, takes the paper, and offers to help. After the day ended, the lady was met by friends. Her friend immediately noticed that something was wrong, so she asked why the girl had left so suddenly. The beauty calmly stated that she had some important business to attend to. The blue-eyed woman still does not understand how the meeting with Roman happened. He behaved strangely. Khalid remained silent until he felt something. The man apologizes for what he is about to say, but he also understands that he must speak up. There is a strange smell coming from the girl, and the beauty should take off some of her clothes. Emma reacted violently, screaming indignantly. The rabbit led her friend away, and Khalid tried to stop them, explaining that he just wanted to warn her. He asked if there was a costume for practice so he could change into it. The lady did not understand. She looked frightened because what was happening, although wrong, was causing her anxiety. The woman changed, and now everything was fine. Emma said that even before that, she hadn't smelled anything, and that Khalid should go to the hospital. The man took the dress and locked it in a suitcase, ordering her not to touch it, not even to try to touch it, otherwise it would only get worse. The blonde decided to ask the blue-eyed woman a question when she came out. Perhaps the girl had been with someone or touched something strange. According to the snake, the smell was reminiscent of something that could not be transmitted through a light touch. And he also asked if the lady had met anyone before returning. The realization was reflected in her pupils, but the heroine said she couldn't remember anything like that. Emma argues with her friend again for making the situation worse. The man asked her to stop, saying that they have known each other for a long time. He asked her to change her clothes because he found it strange. If she didn't change, the lady wouldn't be able to attend normal classes. Khalid asks him to stop touching Lucy because he is already at his limit and does not want to continue the argument. While the guys continue to argue, the girl reflects that she shouldn't have lied and doesn't know why she acted that way. Rumors spread that many had seen the new student hugging someone from the school in the hallway. The romance was worthy of a novel. Khalid noticed that Hatman, while listening, was distracted from their conversation, as if nothing had happened before. The man urges her to tell him at least, but turning away, the lady repeats that nothing happened. The girl is still confused because Roman has arrived. Lucy herself did not notice how time had passed. Someone touched her shoulder to tell her that the lesson was over, and a friend suggested going outside for some fresh air. The girl asked again what the smell coming from her yesterday was. The young man knew it was related to the wolf, but replied that it was just a little dangerous. There was nothing special about it. Carl asked her to come straight to him if her friend was suddenly being bullied, as he understood that he could help. The guys met up with Emma, and they went to lunch. The girl looked at her plate, realizing that she had absolutely no appetite to eat. Because of Roman, her head was in complete turmoil. Someone entered the hall and everyone began to whisper. It seemed to be Baskerville himself. He was very handsome, impossible not to notice. Khalid noticed that the fact that the man was walking with the crowd was a little scary. Emma spoke well of someone she had only seen from a distance, which was annoying. Lucy made eye contact with the blonde man, but immediately looked away. Baskerville said something to his friends and decided to head over to their table. Emma asked fearfully why the wolf was looking at her and approaching her. When he got closer, the hero still addressed Lucy. The man wants to have lunch with the girl after so long, and again all the curious glances are directed at the lady, making her feel uncomfortable. The blonde man looked around and quietly asked if he was interrupting the guys. He would like to join the company. It would be quite nice. The woman looks skeptical. She remembers perfectly well that there was a rift in their relationship. At first the young man was cold, but for some reason he suddenly started behaving like this. Emma decided that she should leave the couple alone, so they got ready to leave. The girl lifted Khalid from his chair, assuring him that it was better this way. The girl pretends that they have something to talk about and that it cannot be missed. The wolf notices that the three are close and wonders if they are Lucy's friends. Of course, the young man asked about the snake. Surely he is more interested in someone from the predatory world than some rabbit girl. The young man watched the two walk away. The man is too big, and in the end it seems that this could cause problems for everyone else. It could be dangerous. Presumably, the man was going to become king among the herbivores. For him, this was the most important thing. The girl thought he shouldn't talk like that. The wolf took some salad for himself. He had recently started following a vegan diet. The girl noticed that the young man had grown 25 centimeters despite his diet. Earlier, the couple didn't have a chance to talk. The man is interested in how his old friend is doing. Everything is fine with Hatman. The blonde man sadly lowered his head. Everything was going badly for him. The girl was surprised and asked again, but he changed the subject, asking about those friends again. Everything looks just wonderful, of course. The words are full of sarcasm. The hero has been bored all this time, and his friend was with Khalid. The lady starts screaming. The one who didn't want to meet the girl was the wolf. The young man has no idea how much the heroine missed him. It seems he didn't even read her letter. The blonde said that this was not the case. He read everything and even put on a scarf. It seemed to him that he had changed a lot since then, so he thought that if he didn't do so, the girl would not remember him. The blue-eyed woman asked in bewilderment why Roman thought he could be forgotten. The answer was simple. She wanted him to be forgotten. To the lady, what he said seemed like nonsense, but in any case, she left her friend and moved away, doing everything she could to get as far away as possible. In her new place, Lucy goes by the surname Hatman. She said it was just a change in physical distance, but that wasn't true. Her friend probably wanted to throw everything away, including her surname, and live peacefully, without any bother, including from the young man. The woman doesn't understand why she should say things that have no right to be said. The girl can't throw it all away, but even if she did, she would still only remember Roman. The one who hadn't written for months was Baskerville, and Lucy really missed him like a fool, not realizing that it was all in vain. When the lady wanted to say how she waited in the park every evening, the young man interrupted her, realizing that his friend was too confused by her arrival at school. At school, the girl goes by the surname Hatman. No one knows her as the famous leopard, so they will probably have to pretend that they don't know each other. The romance will remain a memory that the heroine can bring up whenever she wants. But one way or another, the man really did yearn for her. She had to come only because she could no longer bear it. The woman looks surprised, fear reflected in her eyes. Roman leaves, looking at his ex-girlfriend one last time. She cannot believe that she has hurt the only person who loved and cared for her. Half an hour later, the friends returned to the table, and Khalid immediately asked if the transfer student had hugged the girl. The brunette explains that Baskerville used to be her friend, and the man looks skeptical while Emma wonders how it happened. When the rabbit girl left, the green-eyed man decided to have a private conversation. He hadn't wanted to talk earlier because their friend was nearby. The young man asked if Roman was her ex-boyfriend, not just a friend. The girl shook her head. They had often hugged each other before, but had never been in a relationship. Khalid raised an eyebrow. A strong embrace with someone of the opposite sex did not imply friendship. The blue-eyed girl froze. She had never looked at the situation from that angle. The man advised her to either start dating or stop hugging. Right now, the lady looked like his girlfriend, which did not reflect well on her. Emma returned, and the young man immediately began to smile, asking if she had washed her hands well. The guys were talking about something, leaving the lamb behind. The girl is worried about what will happen next. Perhaps Roman really did consider their relationship to be more than just friendly. The girl knows that she must resolve the misunderstanding. The lady ran to the place where she was told her former friend would be. Standing next to him is a lady with dark hair. Without paying attention to her, Lucy declares that they need to talk. She shouts, not filtering her tone. Obviously, the young man missed her just as much, if not more. People around them hear and start whispering. The girl wants to talk, but the blonde man hesitates a little. He has an appointment, so he will have to postpone it and discuss their relationship a little later. The girl standing next to Roman smiles, noticing that the lamb seems to be familiar with him, and the beauty invites the man to have dinner together. The brunette turns out to be very nice. She even offers to join them, and despite the refusal, she nods. The wolf says goodbye. They will see each other next time. Lucy feels as if her heart is about to jump out of her chest. The young man said that he came to school for his ex-girlfriend and said that he was offended. The lady sadly watches her acquaintance leave. It turned out that they had grown apart. Although there had been hope that this would not happen, the girl found a note on her bag. It was already evening. Roman wrote that he needed a tour of the school and that they needed to meet. Lucy didn't understand when the young man had managed to send the message, but she decided to go anyway to find out more details. The hero immediately greeted the lady as soon as he saw her. His hand touched her cheek. It seemed that Lucy was cold. Roman bent down and hugged the girl, inhaling the scent of her hair and simply remaining silent. Not long ago he had been cold, but his mood had changed. The woman pushed the guy away. She remembered the words Khalid had said to her about the strange smell. The beauty understood that it was only for her safety. The girl told the man what had happened. Yesterday, she had been told that after hugging someone you could smell them. Roman was a wolf, and his sense of smell was probably stronger than Khalid's. She had to check. For some reason, the hero immediately began to defend himself. He checked whether one of the girl's friends had told her this information. It seemed that it was Khalid after all. The lady suggests meeting the snake, if the wolf doesn't mind. They will meet tomorrow before class. He will also have to talk to Emma to win her over a little. The young man leans toward the beauty's hand. He doesn't smell anything strange. On the contrary, only a pleasant aroma that mesmerizes him. It seems that the snake has decided to play a joke on the blue-eyed girl. If Baskerville were in Khalid's place, he would not have joked. The lady is distracted from the conversation again. She notices once more that Roman's tail is completely motionless. The girl turns away. Her friend is not at all the person he seems to be. Even if he likes to joke, he would never try to forget someone. Lucy hasn't changed at all, but Roman has become completely different. He looks like someone new, unknown, a stranger to the lamb. The wolf waves her off. He also believes that he is exactly the same as before. He turned away because he doesn't like this conversation. The young man looked around, deliberately avoiding eye contact, and the heroine began to wonder why he had asked her to give him a tour of the school at night. The young people sat down on a bench, and the hero began to ask about Khalid again and ask questions about how they became friends. The girl asked in response why they couldn't take the brunette who was with the wolf during the day with them. The blonde man chuckled and pretended he didn't know, saying that the beauty was just too boring. The brunette nodded. Their eyes met, and the wolf's hands reached out to Lucy. Her palms were cold, and she had recently begun to look like a very cold person. The man insisted on walking the lady home. She didn't know what difference it would make, so she said nothing. Baskerville began his story. In fact, a lot had happened in the capital during Leopardy's absence, more than she could even imagine. The school tour was just an excuse. Everyone had long understood this. Her friend invited Lucy to the garden to talk about something else. The girl abruptly decided to ask if they were really friends. Pain was reflected on his face, and it was impossible to hide the range of emotions. With great effort, the wolf nodded. It turned out that her older brother, Alexander, had married Marcel. It was a modest wedding. They decided that it would be much better that way. The man wanted to hold the ceremony before the woman left to study abroad. Everything was so beautiful that this joyful moment was remembered for a long time. In fact, the hero wanted to tell his girlfriend in a letter that there had been changes in his family, but something stopped him, and the beauty asked him what the reason was. At that time, the wolf really hated his ex-girlfriend a little. Of course, the lambs were not to blame for this, but the young man realized it too late. The man figured out his own feelings too late, and this made him doubt himself. The girl said that she missed her friend and that she should understand why he had come. The hero was going to tell her what he couldn't do during their last meeting in the park. He loved Lucy very much and couldn't even describe it in words. The man thinks that the girl was his first love, and he came to finish the confession he was going to make that very day. Of course, the hero knows that he did a lot of bad things to the lady. He was angry and tormented even though she did nothing wrong. The woman is not to blame for not being able to reciprocate his feelings. The blonde man needs time to collect his thoughts. Sometimes the situation is perhaps too stressful, and he looks intently at his friend. If he had gotten close to her then, he would not have been able to let her go later. If that had happened, he would have begged her not to leave the capital and to stay with him forever. The man came to apologize, because the girl should not lose her precious friend. Now he is fine. He has no such thoughts of love when he sees Lucy. His confession was true. He really missed her, and now he would be able to become a real friend. There were no more barriers between them. The girl looked sadly at the floor. She was asked if she had missed the man, and she could only nod. It was true. The wolf gently hugs the blue-eyed girl, and it's like a weight has been lifted off her shoulders. I'd like to think that nothing else will change. Half an hour later, the two reached Hatman's house. The place where she had settled was beautiful, very close to the school. They thank her for finding the time to come out. Baskerville has an expression on his face as if he has broken the bonds that bind him. It seems that the rumors about his family are complete nonsense. The girl nods, wishing him a good night. Lying at home, she thought that they couldn't have been in a relationship anyway. Love doesn't last as long as friendship, she knew. Barashka tried to convince herself that she had never really been in love with Roman, that it had been just an illusion. Her former friend had had the most sincere feelings from the very beginning, but now everything was different. It was sad, but he no longer felt love in his heart. In the morning, one of her classmates approached the girl, interested in whether Barashka had spoken to the wolf. The brunette nodded and the stranger immediately blushed. If so, she would like to ask for a favour that might seem strange. Before the heroine could ask anything, Lucy stated that she and the wolf were not as close as they might seem at first glance. In fact, it was a relief for the lady. Waving goodbye, she wished him luck in class. If Roman had confessed earlier, everything would have been different. The lady couldn't get that thought out of her head. The woman knew that she would most likely have rejected the young man because they were different, but her heart ached as if she had hoped for a relationship. Emma ran to her friend as soon as classes ended. She had been looking forward to the holidays for a long time and asked Lucy to spend the night at her house on the eve of Riza Day. Khalida invited the blonde over in the afternoon. They were both silent, which forced her to ask what was wrong. The snake stared intently at the lamb. The rabbit suggested that her friend was feeling unwell because winter was coming, but he turned away. It was something else, something he couldn't talk about. A little later, the man approached Hatman again to ask if she was really just a friend to the new student. The girl nodded, because for her it really meant nothing more than that. The green-eyed man pressed her until the end, wanting to know everything as it was. Perhaps the two were hiding their relationship. The blue-eyed girl laughed. It sounded absurd. If the couple really wasn't true, as the rumors said, Khalid said that was too much. The hero thought for a long time about whether to tell the truth or not, but finally made up his mind. From the moment Baskerville transferred, the snake began to smell him on the lamb, so strong that it made those around him dizzy. The girl blinked in surprise, as if asking what was going on. She really didn't understand, even if she wanted to. Khalid continued. The smell was strange and strong, difficult to describe in words, but it felt as if he had marked his territory, showing the others that the girl belonged to him. He was distracted from the conversation by Emma's cheerful voice behind him. A wolf was standing in front of them, which, of course, had not missed the opportunity to come. The beauty looked into his eyes, not understanding how he had ended up nearby again at such an opportune moment. The coincidence was beginning to bother her more and more. The blonde stood next to the man, waving her hand. They had brought a plate of salad with them so they could sit down to lunch together. The hero smiled radiantly, asking if he could sit down. The beauty still remembered the conversation about smells. Emma ran up to Khalid, suggesting that they eat together, but he didn't understand what she was getting at, so he pointed to Lucy, who shouldn't be left alone. The girl argued that they needed to talk about an important topic, but the snake was skeptical, saying that such words could only be spoken in private. The young man asked the heroine not to pull his collar so as not to ruin anything. The wolf watched as they left and left the lamb with him. The girl was disappointed. She was going to introduce her friends to her ex, and as she sat down, the hero noticed that they got along well. The blonde suggested that Emma was dating Khalid, and the lady looked at the young man's smile as he listened to what the rabbit was telling him. The brunette turned away. They were just friends. Roman pretended to be surprised. They looked so compatible that they could at least give it a try. Since they weren't in a relationship, perhaps the characters were in the same situation as Lucy and Baskerville. He remained straightforward. The girl decided to start a conversation on a more important topic. The snake said he could smell a wolf on his friend. He was surprised and literally clung to the lamb's hand. Of course, the hero denied everything until the very end, saying that he didn't smell anything, that the smell couldn't have appeared out of nowhere, that it was simply unrealistic. My friend mentioned that Khalid was a good friend to her because everyone at school was herbivorous. Before the wolf came along, he must have felt like he was king of the rest. The man suggested that this was the reason why the guy didn't like him. Khalid had no reason to give in. Roman suggested that it was boring in this place. The girl didn't understand what he meant, but it was obvious that Emma and her close friend were constantly spending time together, leaving her alone. It was as if cold water had been poured on the heroine's face. She froze when she heard the truth. The wolf thought that she would probably be spending all her time alone. Roman began to ask about the eve of Riza's day. Perhaps Lucy would have free time. She knew that the man had no one in his new place, so he would like to be nearby. Smiling, the boy insisted that he wanted Leopard to have no plans. The beauty smiled, but she understood that the young man was lying and did not blush. Emma made the girl promise that she would come to her house, because otherwise there was no point in organizing a meeting. She suddenly remembered that if everything went well, the lamb would become Baskerville's wife. Everyone knows that if you are in a relationship with a wolf, it all ends in marriage, so she had better not make a bad impression. The blue-eyed girl asked again. She couldn't believe that she was being pushed into the abyss of reality, and Khalid intervened in the conversation. Zmei had once heard that this was the curse of the Baskervilles, from which there was no escape. The blonde silenced her friend and asked the girl to think carefully about everything. The rabbit had long since begun to understand that something was brewing. Her friend said that she and the wolf had known each other for a long time. Thinking logically, one could understand that he had a special reason. The beauty was completely immersed in her dreams. Lucy really liked Roman. He always smiled when he was around her, showing his true feelings. When the man asked if they could all have lunch together, the girl's heart almost jumped out of her chest. She quickly figured out what was going on, so even then it wasn't difficult. Zmei interrupted the romantic speech of the bunny, thinking that it was all absurd. Emma cannot call herself quick-witted, reasoning in this way. The green-eyed man turned to Lucy with a more important question, wanting to know if she had passed on what they had discussed the day before. The beauty smiled. It turned out that the wolf said he wasn't sure. The man hesitated and let the guy get closer to the defenseless lamb. He is really dangerous, it's worth remembering that. The bunny hit her friend on the shoulder. He was just jealous of Roman, not realizing that his eyes were filled with this feeling. Once again, they began to yell at each other. Emma quickly changed the subject to Riz's birthday. She asked Khalid if he was coming, and he nodded, asking what gifts to bring. She had to remind him that there was no food for predators in the house, and the man nodded, promising to bring stomach medicine. Lucy began to understand Roman's words. The couple exuded a special atmosphere. The snake pretends that he can eat what he cannot even swallow, which is very reminiscent of the words spoken by the wolf in the past. It occurred to the beauty that the young man was trying his best to be kind, but it was better not to think about it at all, as it only made things worse. The brunette feels like she wants to cry, tears welling up in the corners of her eyes. If only she knew how much she would regret it, she would feel even more melancholy. The girl received a letter asking her to show him the city. She struggles with the desire to agree, but in reality she does not want to, as the young man already has so many friends. A little time passed and the school holidays began, which all the high school students had been eagerly awaiting. The blue-eyed girl was sleeping peacefully until someone knocked on the door. She thought she should go to the door, but then a pebble almost hit her from the window. Roman was standing on the street below, waving his hand in greeting. The blonde had come in person because he had not received a reply to his letter. It turned out that the man had been calling the girl for some time, and she apologized, saying that she had been sleeping so deeply that she hadn't heard anything. It was actually still very early in the morning, but her friend asked her to come down to him, and the lady did not answer. His gaze focused on the scarf that the wolf was still wearing. Unfortunately, his ears and tail were not moving, which meant a lot. The hero is surprised that he couldn't get through to Lucy, even though it's vacation time. He casually reminds her that he can't talk to anyone because he has no friends. Half an hour later, the lamb changed her clothes and came down after all. The man escorted her to the carriage, promising to treat her to something delicious. The lady couldn't help but comment on the scarf, which Lucy had knitted, so the gift was important to Roman. She nodded, asking where in the city they were going. The girl didn't know the area very well, and the wolf nodded. To tell the truth, he didn't know much either. The guys from school had talked about some places, but he had only managed to find out about a few. The girl quietly asked which friends he was talking about. Of course, they were some classmates. They often went to those places. The beauty said she wasn't hungry, and the man suggested they drink some hot tea and helped the lady out of the carriage. The young man asked what was wrong because he noticed some changes. The girl said that it was strange for her to see a face so high up. It wasn't that the man was unrecognizable, and that was good. The blonde smiled and they went into the restaurant. The girl was drinking tea, but then she was asked to hold out her hand. Her palm felt cool. Sheep usually keep their distance from each other in winter, but in summer they are together again. Perhaps the words meant that the lady wanted to stay away from the wolf, but she doesn't know. He asked why the lady didn't go home. The girl came up with a reason, all because of preparations for the next semester. The holidays are quite short. Even when they are together, the heroine feels sad and does not understand why she went home. The dishes were served, and the girl heard a question about what she was going to do, and she asked in return. The young man said he would get used to the new place. Mitch invited him to his place. The lady realized that something was wrong. Roman's kindness had disappeared somewhere. The girl doesn't want her friend to have more fun tomorrow than with her. She is no longer special to him. There was no news from the guy for 2 days, and the fact that they were trying to be friends didn't sit well with the girl. The blue-eyed girl began to feel jealous. She had constant thoughts about wanting the young man to be with her, but she also wanted to get rid of that feeling. The beauty couldn't tell Emma about her feelings. She was too kind. She needed to find someone else. Khalid could be a good candidate, but the girl didn't know if she could tell him everything. The day of Riza arrived, and the beauty went out with the wolf, who showed her where she could go. The young man got the girl a toy with a machine gun. Where he knocked it out, he noticed that he was athletic. The girl was given the toy, and she thinks that she should have gone with Emma. Lucy is pale, but she says it's because she felt dizzy. The hero touched her head with his hand. The beauty had a fever, so they went home and she apologized in the carriage. The man said that everything was fine. He wasn't really looking forward to Riza's day, especially since the couple had managed to see everything. The lady felt uncomfortable that her friend was no longer looking forward to spending time with her, but she did not show it. Near her house, he asked her to let him know if she felt better or worse. The girl realized that it was better to stay away from Roman. Jealousy was extremely exhausting. When the lady was near the young man, dark thoughts overwhelmed her, even though he had done nothing wrong. Lucy didn't know what to do, but her thoughts were interrupted by Khalid, who had come to visit her and was standing on the doorstep. The man asked for help, and when asked about Emma, he said that she would also visit her friend soon. The brunette did not expect her friend to confess his feelings to the rabbit, but he did so after much deliberation. The lady led him into the living room and asked how she could help. Emma needed to be told that the snake was a good person. He was pleased to know that Lucy thought so, but he had to wait for Emma. The girl reassured him, and the young man understood that his friend would not judge him. He really wanted to reunite with the one he liked. The hero said that he had been interested in the girl from the very beginning and could describe her wonderful qualities and appearance for hours. From the very beginning, the young man wanted to touch the girl's ears. She was so cute that it was difficult to restrain himself. At first, the snake couldn't imagine falling head over heels in love, but everything changed, and he doesn't know why it happened. The lamb knows that Khalid is a kind man, and she is confident that he will treat his woman well. Emma is very cowardly. The snake relies on Lucy and her help. The lady couldn't believe she had become such a person. The man continued to beg the rabbit to tell her how wonderful he was, promising to do anything in return. The girl has the right to ask for whatever she wants. She tried to help anyway, and now an opportunity has opened up. There was no reason, but it was scary that the advice would backfire. Still, they talked and the hero left. Soon, Emma ran to the estate, and the girl asked why this had happened in the middle of the night and what had frightened her. The blonde lowered her head. She didn't know what to do because Khalid had confessed his feelings, and the lamb behaved as if she didn't know. Everything was fine while the two were playing, but then, during their walk, the hero began to shiver, even though snakes are not usually afraid of the cold. The young man suddenly said that he wanted to date her and asked her to give him at least one chance. The girl smiled. Even she could see that Khalid was breathing unevenly around the lady. There was nothing wrong with him except his origin. The brunette involuntarily recalled that very conversation with the wolf when he thought that friends were dating. Now the lady understood everything. She hadn't believed it then, but now she realized what a mistake she had made in the end. The woman shouted that he should have confessed, after some hint, and not immediately as he had done. The blue-eyed girl remembers that Khalid said he gave hints, but Emma didn't notice anything, which is strange. Even without knowing what kind of person the rabbit is, he says he fell in love. He fell in love with the fantasies he created. Ears, horns, or a tail, characters can fall in love for real. In the past, Roman's tail was special to the lamb. The lady knew that Emma's ears also meant a lot to Khalid, and she was pleased to realize that her friends would start dating. The girl decided to start with the main thing right away, interrupting the blonde and asking if the bunny had feelings. If a woman usually doesn't like something, she says so right away. Maybe she had doubts. For some reason, the image of Roman popped into her head again, and the girl tried to push this annoying picture out of her mind. The girl had never thought of Khalid in that way, and the lamb answered the question in the same way, saying she had never thought that either. Emma doesn't understand how she could have liked the snake. He is cheerful, smart, and actually a little cute. The rabbit always considered them just friends, and now she can't change her mind either. Of course, it was noticeable that the young man was a little different towards the girl, but she didn't understand the truth. Emma behaves just like the lamb did in the past, torn between love and friendship, and it's quite difficult to understand the difference. It's scary to think that it will be awkward to communicate with Khalid, and the lady wants all three of them to continue being friends as before. Lucy assures her that everything will be fine, but the question makes her cringe because she wants to know if her friend felt the same way she did. The brunette explains that it is better to respond to feelings, otherwise the relationship will become awkward. The woman, frightened, suggests that they stop being with the snake and be friends together. The lady quietly asks if the reluctance to meet is really that strong. Lucy asks her to close her eyes and imagine Khalid, which should give her goosebumps. The brunette decides to try something else and asks about kissing, but the woman cries out that she cannot do such a thing. The girl found the right spot, suggesting that she imagined the snake kissing someone else and loving her. Emma admitted that it felt a little strange to think about such a thing, but the girl said that maybe the reaction would be better if she imagined it was her. The room was silent. The blonde lowered her head, not immediately understanding how to respond. Although Lucy liked her friend, she didn't like this idea, but it became clear that she did have some feelings for the young man. The woman suggested they start dating, thinking that the lady might be sad if she refused and he went to someone else. When Emma realizes how much she misses him, it will be too late. Lucy wishes she had said those words to her in the past. The blonde is still worried that their trio will break up, that everything will be as it was before, that there is no need to complicate life. It's better to try practicing dating Khalid. The rabbit won't be alone forever anyway. The lamb has never had a romantic relationship herself, so she can't say much. The blue-eyed girl missed her chance, and the girl suggests letting her know if something changes over time. The blonde was getting ready to go home, but asked her friend to listen to her worries next time, and her friend nodded. Returning to her room, the lady fell onto her bed, tears streaming from her eyes, wishing that the past could be different. In the morning, Khalil arrived to clarify what to buy for Lucy. She was skeptical, thinking that such questions should be asked of Emma. The man began to laugh, completely forgetting that the girl was now his beloved. Barashko began to be frightened by the young man's elevated mood. He had come to keep his word and deliver the news. Earlier, the hero promised that if the brunette helped him, he would do whatever she wanted. Lucy would always be his friend, the one he also loved. She had helped him in matters of the heart with flying colors. In the future, the woman can ask for any favor. The girl nodded. She will think about it at her leisure. Now that it's all over, Emma needs to be treated as well as possible, and the lady sees her friend out onto the street. Although the lady is surrounded by those who are important to her, she feels lonely. She knows nothing about this feeling. The girl decided to rest and not go anywhere during the holidays. She needs something, but she cannot replace the wolf. The lady doesn't know what she was looking for when she came to the city. Perhaps she was just trying to throw something away. The next morning came, and when she got up, the heroine started sneezing. She had caught a cold. The girl saw a wolf toy on the table. The window was open, and the wind made her incredibly cold. Something had happened during the night. The girl did not return home yesterday for the holidays and therefore caught a cold. She constantly thinks about her homeland. Once again, the blue-eyed girl imagines kissing Roman. She can no longer bear it. One detail confuses her. The window seemed to have been open, but now it looks like it has cracked, and it's not because of the wind. The day didn't start well, and it continues that way. The beauty accidentally stepped on a shard of glass. Blood is flowing, and even after the lady quickly bandages her foot, she doesn't know what to do next. She is worried that she may have accidentally cut a major artery. Everything is blurry before her eyes, and she realizes that she needs to call someone for help. Emma came right away, and the girl is already feeling better, but they still ask her if there is anything that can be done about it. Her friend removed the bandage and washed the wound, asking her to be patient, even if it hurt a lot, as the bleeding had stopped. Zeika asks anxiously if everything is okay. The wound is deep, so it may sting a little, and she suggests going to the hospital. The blue-eyed girl doesn't remember being sent there for anything less than a serious case, and her friend asked how the girl got hurt. The window broke, and unfortunately, the girl didn't even understand how it happened. It was just some kind of mystery. Emma shouted that she should be more careful, that if she didn't know, she shouldn't spread rumors. Just in time, the heroine decided to change the subject. She heard that the blonde had agreed to go on a date with Khalid. The girl was asked to tell how it all happened. Yesterday, she went for a walk with a man, and that's where it all began. The heroine didn't know how to behave. It felt strange to see him as something other than a friend. First, the lady asked to try kissing him. Barashka froze with wide eyes, but Emma thought it was normal because after the kiss, they wouldn't feel awkward. The woman doesn't think it's strange. She now understands why Khalid smiled and laughed when they met in the morning. She reassured herself that the action was rational, and the blonde continued, asking her what feelings she had experienced at that moment. It didn't seem like she didn't like the kiss. Emma noticed her friend's lost look and assured her that nothing would change in their friendship. Someone knocked on the door, distracting the two. The woman didn't know who had come, but she was curious to open the door and find out. Emma got up to open it because a girl with an injured leg shouldn't be walking anywhere. She was surprised when she found herself at the door. A wolf entered the room, the young man looked around, and the main character froze, as she also did not expect him to come and see her. The man noticed the bandage on her leg and immediately became concerned. The blonde immediately explained that a window in the room had been broken and she had accidentally stepped on a shard. The rabbit did not understand how the young man knew where the lamb lived. He did not seem to hear her, just looked at her leg and sighed quietly with sadness. The girl thought for a moment, then said she was leaving. The man said he was sorry, but didn't explain why. The moment was extremely awkward. Emma misunderstood everything, and the lamb tried to explain it to her, but didn't have time because the lady quickly ran out the door. Only the two of them remained in the room. The heroine asked why her friend had come. He asked her to look at his cut. Apparently, the wound was deep. She could still smell the blood. The girl wanted to say something, but her friend acted much faster than words, picking her up in his arms and not allowing her to walk on her own. The blue-eyed girl began to scream, asking what he was doing, saying that if necessary she could go to the hospital herself. Roman carried the lady to the carriage, and she reproached him for worrying too much about trifles. The hero turned away. It was he who had broken the window in the room. The young man felt terrible. He thought his friend was unwell, so when he walked past, thinking she was asleep, he threw a small stone. He couldn't find the strength to tell the whole truth. Lucy looks at him with an enchanted gaze. It's obvious that the hero came yesterday because he was worried. The girl should accept payment for the hospital and the broken glass. The wolf suggests that she should also tell her parents. Her friend laughs. That's too much. The man quietly asks if his friend is angry. He still doesn't understand how she feels about it. The girl also doesn't understand what he's getting at. The blonde man remains silent until he decides to speak, and it's clear that this is even more difficult for him. When the lady hurt herself, she called Emma first, not the wolf, which offends him a little, and the blue-eyed girl shakes her head. The friend was the first to become more indifferent, and the girl decided to change the subject, noticing that she had accidentally forgotten to change her shoes. The hero offers to carry the lady, because in any case they have already driven far away. She did not put on makeup. But the young man thinks that the girl is beautiful anyway. The girl suggested that the young man tells everyone he meets that they are beautiful. They did not notice that the carriage had arrived at its destination, and the hero reached out his hand to help her. The girl did not understand why until the last moment because she could walk. She refused, but there was nothing left to do but accept the situation. The blonde man picked up the beauty in his arms. It was better for her to stop resisting and agree with what they were doing. He asked her to lean on him. The woman still insisted that they put her down. She was making a scene that no one needed, and the more she behaved like this, the more attention they would attract. The doctor said that a small splinter had lodged in his leg, but the young man behaved as if he had a cut and a scar would remain on his beautiful face. The blonde man still remembered that it was all his fault in the first place, but the girl waved it off, saying it was nothing more than a cut and didn't mean anything. There was no point in blaming his carelessness. Only Emma knew what had happened, and the hero still thought it was wrong. Barashka apologized in response, saying that if she hadn't been hurt, they wouldn't have had to waste time, but it didn't matter anymore. The children arrived home, and the girl said that if it got worse, she would call Emma, who would replace the glass and then send the bill. There is no need to thank him for his concern. Roman repeats that if it weren't for him, nothing would have happened. It is entirely his fault. Anyone in the wolf's place would have done the same, gathering all their strength in a fist. The lady nodded and agreed, and she was about to go into the house. The woman expressed her gratitude once more. He shouldn't think that it was all his fault. Returning to the room, the lady sat down on the bed. In the end, she had what she had, one of the worst vacations she had to admit this time. The girl wrote a letter to her parents, explaining that she was fine and why she hadn't come. The woman did not come because the vacation was so short, but she promises that she will definitely come next time. Rana's wound was also gradually healing, and the blue-eyed girl began to understand that everything was fine when she received a message from Roman. The hero wished the girl a happy new year and asked how she was feeling. She had already said that nothing hurt anymore, but her friend persisted. The passage of time had not changed. The new year meant nothing special to the lamb, and 2 weeks of rest had passed. Baskerville's carriage was waiting outside the house, and he once again asked how Hatman was doing. The man promised to take the lady back if she had plans. He would wait. He wanted to be of help. The girl felt awkward that the hero was going to do just that until everything was over. They rode in the carriage where there was a deathly silence. The brunette remembered the news that Emma and Khalid had recently started dating. The blonde had liked the snake since the beginning of school. At school, the guys parted ways. Of course, the wolf was thanked again for his help, and the girl went to her friends. Khalid stared at Emma. He didn't see any problem with that. After all, they were dating. Everyone would understand what was going on. The blonde didn't know how to react. Relationships were new to her, and she reminded him that he shouldn't behave like that. The blue-eyed girl looked at the couple skeptically. Khalid was acting like a child. Of course, she had helped them herself, but this seemed too much to her. Lucy approached, and the snake immediately asked if she had come with Baskerville. Emma rushed to her friend, begging her to do something about her boyfriend. It felt like the young man had gone mad. Otherwise, there was no explanation for his behavior. The brunette replied that everything would be easier soon. The blonde asked about her leg, and the girl lied, saying that it was almost healed. The snake had no idea what had happened. It turned out that she had stepped on glass. The girl had stitches at the hospital. She didn't know what she would do at the winter ceremony, but she just hoped that everything would heal by then. The girl would use the injury as an excuse, but she doesn't know if Roman will want to dance with her. He might choose someone else. There were many thoughts in her head, but the heroine tried to convince herself that it was just a school event where she could have fun, eat sweets, and dance. The brunette hoped that if nothing unpleasant happened between her and her friend, she might even be able to dance with him. When the lady thought about Roman, her face flushed. It would be wonderful if she had the opportunity to dance with him at least once. In the past, there had been many opportunities to dance together, but the girl did not realize it, and she should have been happy then. At a time when Roman was Lepidee's only friend, and when he was in love with her, it was the best moment she had ever missed. Anyone can fall in love, because despite their different backgrounds, two people can like each other the most. Khalid and Emma are a perfect example. They are the ones who can find common ground and live peacefully, doing everything they need to do, just the two of them. The girl was distracted, and her friend noticed how Hatman began to fold origami from the pages of the textbook they had been given. The lady had never done origami before. She couldn't remember the last time she had been interested in anything like that. Zmei looked intently at the girl, but then turned away and covered his beloved's hand with his palm. The blue-eyed girl looked out the window, wondering if people would ever be able to live on their own, as everyone feels lonely when they are alone. After class, the girl asked if she was interrupting her friend's lovemaking. She decided to ask this suddenly and then walk away. The guys have time they spend alone, which is enough, and they are not going to leave Lucy alone without friends. It's all clear. The heroine just thought that being alone would make it easier for her to skip the winter ceremony. It's too much hassle. They want to take the lady with them wherever they go. It's not a problem. Yeah, the snake asked about Baskerville, addressing Lepidee by her real surname. The woman turned and asked how her friend knew everything. The man's family has connections with the press, so it wasn't difficult. When the wolf appeared at school, he behaved as if he knew Lucy. They were friends, but they had to meet in a very strange place. The incident with the cuticle cream showed that the lady was among herbivores for the first time. Among those who might have known Roman was a sheep, the same age as the brunette. The girl transferred to a regular school because she wanted to live a normal life for a while before going to college. The hero understands everything. It's about Baskerville. He followed his girlfriend, which means something happened between them. The brunette told the truth. Before she transferred, she had a big fight with him, and he said he did it because he wanted to make up. It seems that the young man wanted to talk face to face, so he discarded the option that suited him, and the wolf came to school. It may sound strange, but since it wasn't a breakup, he doesn't have to act weird. He's constantly hanging around the lamb. Without the consent of the person he doesn't even date, he can't be around, blue-eyed, asking what it all means. Someone threw a large ball, and at the last moment the snake heard the sound, cutting through the wind, and quickly deflected the object. The man was very angry and did not understand who had done this. He looked around and then noticed someone. His face became even more aggressive. Baskerville stood a few steps away from his friends, and her behavior could not be linked to anything. The girl asked for an apology. She was hurt. Turning around, the young man simply said, "Sorry," as if he didn't care. Khalid watches the departing wolf. He still doesn't understand what their relationship is. If he's just a friend, it's better to do something with him. The girl is left alone with her thoughts. Perhaps the hero has learned that her leg has healed, and she has informed him that she will travel alone tomorrow. Now the lady can walk on her own without any problems, but the wolf is skeptical. If she strains herself, the wound will not heal completely. The man brought up another topic. Earlier, Lucy said that they would always be friends. The guy wanted to know if his friend had said the same thing to Emma and Khalid. He felt very lonely and hadn't gone anywhere in a long time, so maybe it was time to start making new friends, just like the sheep. The girl did not respond. The next morning, she heard Emma ask about the ceremony. Because of her leg, the lamb would not be able to go there. Emma realized that the heroine was trying to spread a rumor that she would not be going to the party. But her leg had been fine for a long time. As far as the girl suspects, Baskerville may ask her friend to dance before the end of the week. No one knows the truth. After Roman said he was lonely, the conversation ended, and they rode silently in the carriage to school and back. It would be much better if they had a fight. The lady caught herself having strange thoughts and constantly. The girl overheard Baskerville's discussion when she entered, and the girls immediately fell silent. The lady said that they were just friends, and now she proved it to Emma, realizing that she was right. Her friend suggested that the three of them go together, but the lamb refused. The woman doesn't want to see the wolf dancing with someone else. The only one who missed the opportunity is the main character. The girl explained that she would be fine. She planned to stay home and rest. Nothing would happen. In an instant, Leopard realized that she was lonely. In fact, she was confused and did not understand what to do next. The guys were driving home, and the man asked if his friend wanted to tell him something. She replied, asking if the wolf was tired of constantly driving her home. The day of the ceremony arrived. Emma was getting ready and tried to persuade Lucy to go with her, but the girl said she didn't like events like that. There was no need to persuade her, wasting her energy, so her friend asked her to have fun with Khalid. That morning, Roman drove the girl home again. She didn't understand if he was busy, and the blonde man couldn't believe that the girl really wasn't going anywhere. The man knew perfectly well how much the lady disliked parties, but in fact, she began to like them after she met her first friend. She continued, no matter how many times she went to them, she couldn't get used to them. It was better to be alone. For the first time in her life, the beauty wasn't looking forward to the gala evening, and she asked Roman to have a good time. The morning after the ceremony, the beauty asked him not to come anymore. Her leg had healed long ago, but the truth was that she didn't want to feel jealous. The man came anyway and asked to be driven at least one last time, but the girl had other things to do and actively refused. The woman said that they would see each other at school. She really liked Roman, but they had missed their chance. If the heroine kept her distance, one day the wolf would leave her heart. It was a pity that he had decided not to respond for several months and ruined everything. Before lunch, the lamb suggested that Emma have lunch with Khalid, but she said she was on a diet and wasn't hungry. The girl pretended that she had no reason to lie, although she was simply avoiding places where she might meet Roman. Every day, the lady came to school early and left early too, hoping that when her feelings subsided, they would be able to be friends again. A few days later, Khalid caught up with his friend to ask why she had been avoiding Baskerville lately. The young man replied calmly that he understood what was going on. With a sad look on her face, she sighed. It was true. It was worth noting that the blue-eyed girl had not seen the wolf often even before. Friends often grow closer, then drift apart. Barashka considered herself an uninteresting person, and Zmei assumed that she was having some kind of romantic quarrel, so it was better to continue in the same vein to break the guy's heart into pieces. Previously, the green-eyed one had not spoken out for ethical reasons, but now he could tell the truth. After what the man did at the ceremony, he should be destroyed and thrown out of her heart. He deserves nothing. It was unclear what was meant, but Khalid asked for recognition, and even the slow-witted Emma began to worry about her friend's condition. The man offered to introduce the girl to his friends so it would be easier to forget Roman. Breaking up is not so important when there are many people who like the girl for who she is. The lady heard only one thing from everything that was said. She waves her hand saying that she didn't mean anything by it. They weren't dating. The green-eyed man wanted to understand what kind of relationship they had, but the girl herself didn't know, although it was obvious that she had most likely been rejected. The conclusion is this: Lucy likes Roman, but she is no longer interested in him because she was rejected before anything could begin. Khalid cannot be called a man in various words, condemning him because Leopard is still in love with him. Barashka froze. Tears streamed from her eyes and the man began to get nervous. He did not expect such a reaction, especially one so violent. Later, the hero brought her something warm to drink. He was still worried about her condition. It seemed he had brought her to tears. It seemed as if something had happened between the maiden and Roman, so the snake assumed it was a matter of love. Roman was normal, but this was a problem on another level. The green-eyed man wanted to know everything. He was her friend and wanted to know. The girl decided to tell everything from the very beginning. Their first meeting happened a year ago in the summer. In half an hour, the lady told him everything that had happened. She and her ex-boyfriend had a lot in common. Khalid couldn't understand what was going on, of course. It was clear why Lucy was in such a state. but Roman shouldn't be okay. For some reason, everyone uses his last name, but the girl asked to call the guy by his first name. It doesn't matter to the snake what he calls the one who did such a terrible thing. The girl nodded. She said it was pointless. In any case, the heroine mentioned that she was having a hard time because she was in love with Baskerville. Since Lucy no longer likes him and she has feelings for him, something needs to be done, and for this reason, the lady's heart aches terribly. A wise saying always accompanies Khalida, and the brunette became curious about what it meant. When a person behaves badly, they must have reasons for it. The most important thing is that the lamb is ready to move on. A man can ensure a better future in one fell swoop, and a friend must confess to Baskerville as soon as possible. The snake asks if the wolf rejected the girl personally. The brunette turns away, feeling worse, not wanting anything. Still, it's worth checking. It will be better that way. Since the girl is so worried about it, she will have to gather her wits. The beauty is shaking all over. She still can't understand whether she should trust him and leave everything behind. The blue-eyed girl quietly clarifies that she needs more guarantees. Before this, the lady helped a friend with his relationship, and now it's his turn. The woman suffered greatly. It will be much easier to get through it when she is truly rejected. Later, everything will pass. The evening was cool. The wolf arrived on time. He asks why he was called. The girl has something to tell him. She wants to scream, but the blue-eyed girl assures herself that since she has the heart of a lion, she must pull herself together and try. The heroine says simply that she liked Roman. Perhaps it was even love. Baskerville was her first and unrequited love. Khalid didn't just advise her to confess, he asked her to speak in the past tense, as if her feelings were already gone. Roman was honest that before Lucy, the man understands that this is difficult to do, but you have to do the right thing to stay ahead. Zmei asked her to make the young man believe that all her feelings were gone. She just needed to tell him so that he would know. The lady feels relieved, knowing that she will be rejected. It is interesting when the feelings appeared, but she is not sure about anything, most likely from the very beginning. The heroine understands that since it's over, she can be honest. The young man was her first and only friend because he knew her true soul. The wolf was special to Lucy, and when their communications suddenly ended, every day seemed like hell. The girl envied the people who were close to her former friend, and for this reason alone, she wanted to be with them. Unfortunately, the lady did not want this situation to drag on, and Roman should not burden himself with feelings for the lamb either. Now they were friends again, which was important. The man's reaction was too strange. He leaned forward, grabbing the lady by the shoulders. Roman is shaking all over, his quiet voice asking why the girl doesn't like him again. The blonde blindly assumes that the beauty doesn't like him because of the ceremony, because he has changed so much. Maybe the reason is the broken window or the fact that his girlfriend likes someone else. He doesn't believe that it's possible to fall out of love so easily. The wolf has made a mistake. He wants everything to be as it was before. He cries, continuing to ask what is wrong. The girl asks why her friend is crying. He is not going to calm down. He knows that he has disappointed her because he behaved terribly. The heroine tried to calm him down again, but when nothing worked, she took him to her home. The girl held out the toy that Roman had given her, and he hugged her, his voice completely hoarse, when the man asked again if the lady liked it. The woman does not answer the question of how long ago it all happened. She simply has no extra words she could use. The blonde man began to cry again. He probably disliked himself even more in this state, because he looked terrible, but the lady still admitted that she liked him. Feelings are not so easy to let go of, but she still wanted to move forward, so the girl asked the same question in response. Without hesitation, the hero replied that it was true, and immediately began wagging his tail to show that it was true. Lucy asked him to stop crying and tell her everything as it is. They like each other and something needs to be done about it. The lamb thought about it. She didn't understand, but then calmly asked. Perhaps when everything became clear, they seemed to be dating. The man was decisive, in which case he wanted to get married. A letter arrived at the Baskerville estate. Her brother wrote that he had lost and asked why it was necessary to win a game that was so easy to lose. The young people decided to date, which was more than a favourable outcome for the young man's family, because it could have been worse. The month of May, when the two were separated, turned out to be terrible. Harold saved the wolf because it suddenly decided to kill itself. The man accidentally broke his brother's face when he tried to stop him, and now he lies with tears in his eyes, his heart broken. Harold didn't understand the point of crying. If Lucy found out that her friend had died, she would be very upset. The wolf began to cry even harder than before. Alexander added fuel to the fire, deciding that this would be the best strategy. The woman would also feel relieved, and the young man persistently asked her to think before deciding to die. Alexander assured him that the girl would be happy with another guy as soon as she forgot about her friend's death. Hero Owl doesn't understand anything, he asks to stop. But the young man shows with one hand that he knows what he is doing. It is better for Roman to imagine how the brunette would live her life without him. A world in which he would no longer exist, and that would be bad. If the young man dies, the girl will lose her only friend, and will feel guilty for not saving her until the end of her days. Alexander noticed that there would be someone who would love Lucy just as much. She would stay with someone like a hyena. Her brother is not sure that married life will be happy for the lamb, and Roman will not be able to do anything if she is unhappy. The boy is already screaming for it all to end, and Harold asks again to stop, as such words seem to hurt too much. The head of the family is calm. They must put everything in its place so that the youngest no longer tries to leave this world. The guys decided to tie the guy up. The vine for wolves helped a lot, but something had to be done before he went crazy. Most likely, the blonde decided to confess because he couldn't take it anymore. He ran away in the middle of the night. Applying a cold compress to his bruised face, his brother asks what happened. He wants to hear what happened. Heroald was probably so scared that he even hit him, and now he has to apologize to him. Alexander understands his younger brother's feelings. Roman looks sad. He doesn't believe that the head of the family can understand him. He has everything. He doesn't even have to dream. The blonde explains that he didn't get everything he wanted with a snap of his fingers. If you want to get Lucy, you shouldn't show that you like her. People usually don't like it when someone is interested in them. In a sense, it's like a card game. There is a common feature between the game and love. Usually, a person does not show what they want to get, because their opponent will not give them the card they need if they find out their plans. Lucy won't accept his feelings just like that. Roman secretly nurtured them within himself, and it's not her fault that she was scared when she found out. Alexander knows that if he asks her directly to accept his feelings, it won't end well. The hero realizes that he has ruined everything. Barashka wants to live on her own, to distance herself. It seems she wants to get rid of the surname and Baskerville. He shouldn't have confessed. The man realizes that he simply ran away like a coward, and now they need to meet. The blonde man explains that it is too late. To get what he wants, he will have to be patient. The young man should sleep on it and talk with a clear head. The boy threatens to take him to court, but the family lawyer will, of course, side with the head of the family, and they haven't finished talking yet. The blonde man wishes him good night. His eyes close. Even though he doesn't want them to, he thinks about Lucy. She must be furious. Alexander actually wants to lock Marcel in a cage away from everyone else. He used to think that curses were nonsense, but now he doesn't know how to hide this frightening feeling. Perhaps when the girl learned about his confusing feelings, she decided to run away. She said she would leave town and go to school. The man doesn't even know why the girl is leaving. She said she wants to find herself, but he can't believe that this is impossible to do where she is. The young man asks to be released so he can follow the girl, but he is refused, his face covered in bruises. The man is afraid that he and the beauty will drift apart, and Alexander will have to take responsibility for that. Roman's haste creates a problem. One should not trust only attraction. The blonde promises to help his brother. Quite a bit of time has passed since the conversation, and the young man explains that the girl likes her friend, she just hasn't realized it yet. People only begin to appreciate what they are about to lose. Lucy can only be pursued once patience has developed. It's like hunting. The head of the family knows roughly what will happen if he starts communicating while in a rage. It will all turn into thoughts, and the man will become a different person. The girl must lower her guard without realizing it, and in this way, she will let him go so that she will never dare to leave the young man again. The boy quietly asks if Lucy will really love him so much, as Lepardier has never shown sincere feelings. A letter arrived from a friend, but Alexander did not give it to him, reminding him that he must not read it, that he must not even think about it. Roman still had thoughts of getting his girlfriend back. He wants to marry her and live a happy life. The young man realized that he needed to be patient, threw the letter into the fireplace, and watched as the envelope gradually burned up. The wolf realized that changes had begun, and it hurt him that his body was gradually growing larger and larger. Harold was surprised that the young man had grown so much, and the guy almost hit him, thinking he was just a thief. The blond man looks very intently, unsure if he will soon be able to get used to the image he already has. The man could only think about Lucy again and whether she would like his appearance. He missed her very much and wanted to see her. His insides are filled with resentment and bitterness. It's not just love, it's almost self-destruction for no reason. Around that time, Alexander decided to marry Marcel, and there were many people around him who were happy for him. The young man couldn't stop thinking about how happy he would be when he experienced the same moment in his life. His brother's tail didn't move, but the girl still looked very happy. He remembered Lucy's words. She always liked how his friend showed his feelings. The man hoped that he would be able to be close to his girlfriend and control his emotions just like his brother. Perhaps that wasn't the worst option. After a while, Roman said he wanted to see his girlfriend. He had learned to hide his true emotions. The blonde felt that if they didn't meet as soon as possible, he would die and not be able to wait for it. The guy suggested that they go there after all, since all the preparations were complete, and the man promised that he would not lose. This time, the girl would definitely fall in love with the young man, and then she would be able to experience everything that Roman had gone through. Alexander noticed that it was fortunate that Lepardi was hiding his surname, as this would prevent rumors when their brother entered school. The hero tried to be strong and went to another city, wondering if his girlfriend was still hurting. He wanted to hope that the wolf was an important part of Hatman's life, and the hero promised that he would pretend that Lucy had missed a great opportunity. The young man hugged the girl as soon as they met, but he promised himself that he would act as if nothing had happened. The days flew by, and the wolf watched Lucy's friends, noticing that the anaconda was behaving very unusually. The brunette was constantly surrounded by those who had become dear to her, while the young man was angry because he had always been told that he was her only friend. The heroine's words echoed in his head. She always thought that something was wrong with her because she was always completely alone. If he were in Roman's place, his older brother would have tied up the lamb and hidden it from the world so that no one could find it. The main character did not want to see his friend sad or as if she was suffering. He only wanted to see her smile. One day, the snake approached the wolf to tell him what he had learned. He had heard that the two were not meeting, but Roman was leaving his scent on her. The green-eyed man seemed to have nothing to worry about, but still, as Leopard's friend, he cared about her. The man regretted starting the game. He felt as if he had lost the ability to even maintain their friendship. When Lucy called Roman for a talk, he couldn't even imagine that she would confess that she used to like his friend. Now that everything has become clear, the hero tells her how much he wants to marry the woman who is so important to him. The wolf asks her to marry him and then date him. Roman really likes the girl, and in fact, it has turned into despair because he has no idea what to do next. The girl is not disappointed that everything is this way. She has always liked the trait of persistence in character, and for a long time she could not even understand herself. Still, it's better to date a little first. The young man became sad because he is afraid that the lady's feelings will change. Not only will they love each other, but they will also be friends, and if Hatman wants it, Roman will be everything to her. Her own words came to mind. The lamb advised Emma to imagine something more, kisses and more. The maiden asked to hug the guy just once. It had been a long time since they had been so similar. The man promises again that his feelings will remain unchanged, but the lady notices that he has changed too. The hero behaves strangely when he arrived at school. If he has something to say, it's better to do it as soon as possible. He pretends not to know, not because his feelings have changed, but because something really did happen to him. The young man tearfully promises that it won't happen again, and that he will only be able to tell her when they are engaged. Lucy laughs softly and reassures him that whatever he tells her, she will forgive him anyway because it will be better for all of them. She won't pressure him, but she would be grateful if he told her everything in advance, because she wants to help. The young man is in despair because it turns out that his brothers advised him to do just that, to try something new. The wolf should have told her everything earlier. He had started thinking about marriage from the moment they first met. The hero always wanted to be with his beloved, but the blue-eyed girl had long thought that her friend liked someone else. It was very late outside, and the young man was about to go home. Before leaving, he hesitated, thinking that if his feelings changed, he wanted to leave them on paper just in case. The woman nodded and promised to bring the letter, reminding him of everything he had asked for. When it was all over, the girl handed him the envelope, and the blonde quietly asked if he was that pathetic for asking for such a thing. It was better for Roman to stop worrying and go home to get some sleep. The girl said that something was stuck to his nose and asked him to lean in. When the hero was close, the girl gently kissed his nose. The wolf froze. He hadn't expected that, and it felt good. Lucy said it was time to go home. The boy asked again and began to wag his tail, but of course he was refused. The girl sighed. The carriage drove away and she still couldn't believe it. It must be true that a relationship had begun. Early in the morning, Roman came to the house and suggested that they always ride to school together. At first, the brunette didn't understand why. Her leg had healed, but this was something people in relationships usually did. In the carriage, the young man asked if the lady was cold, and she simply nodded. The hero shouldn't have to drive to her house all the time, but he assures her that everything is fine, since he has to get up early anyway to do his exercises. When he has to skip his morning workout, the hero feels completely different, uncomfortable. The girl is nervous that if he is so kind from the very beginning and then his attitude changes, Lucy will be the one who gets hurt. The blue-eyed girl sadly lowered her head. She doesn't understand why she thinks about the bad when everything is fine. The hero seems to know what the lady is thinking. He promises that everything will be fine. The woman will never regret her choice. The girl sees the guy's hands shaking, and it's her turn to calm him down. She will never regret it because she likes the wolf. The young man behaves strangely. He becomes the most important person. Smiling, Baskerville offers to have lunch together. When the girl arrived at school, the first thing she did was tell Emma the news. The girl's initiation did not deceive her. She knew that this is how it would be. The rabbit hugs her friend, asking how she is being treated. The woman wants to know why her friend left Lucy and went to the ceremony alone. The snake arrived just in time and reminded the lady that their acquaintance was the kind of person who could not be dragged out of the house unless there was a fire. The lesson began, and the woman couldn't understand whether the young man was telling the truth. The flames flared up because not everything was peaceful, but she had to chase away her fears. Roman burned everything he had to the ground, and to this day Lepidi does not know how she could have fallen in love with the young man. At lunch, the hero asked why everyone was staring at him, and the blue-eyed woman said that what was happening was inspiring. The realization that everything had ended well made him smile. Standing up, the wolf asked to sit down next to her, and she allowed him to do so. The man placed his hand on his beloved's palm. Relationships are complicated, but they could have started after the wedding. A lot of time had passed. January had turned into February, and the girl asked Roman not to do what he was about to do. The young man wanted to buy a ring for Rosalind's birthday, but on second thought it would be all over the newspapers, so it was better to be careful. The couple had not been dating for long, and the blue-eyed girl wanted to celebrate quietly. She promised to cook something delicious if the hero came to her. The young man did not believe that he had really been invited. and on the way there, the girl asked if he could eat vegetarian pizza. The main character nodded and promised that he would bring lots of other tasty treats with him. Emma ruined the mood. She didn't believe that Lucy would so easily invite someone she had been dating for less than 6 months to her home. The girl began to understand why the hero was so worried. They would meet tomorrow and she was scared to think about it. The brunette waved her hands, telling her friend that she wasn't going to do anything like that with him. In general, there shouldn't be any problems. They should already be close. It was strange that Leopardy wasn't thinking about intimacy. Baskerville was a wolf, and there was nothing wrong with calling a spade a spade. Barushka realized that it would be even worse from the outside if nothing happened, so the woman decided to think about it. Dinner time came unnoticed. The maiden set the table, but she felt as if she wanted to run away. She didn't know if they would have to kiss, and maybe not only that. Someone rang the doorbell, and a young man with a bag was standing on the doorstep. At first, he thought the lady was not happy, but she quickly took him inside. The evening went on as usual. Hatman behaved calmly as always, trying not to show that she was nervous. The man fell silent until he said that he really liked Lucy very much, and she nodded because she felt the same way. The young man leaned closer and kissed the girl gently. They enjoyed it, and the heroine thought that friendship would be enough, but she was wrong. The girl asked why he was holding her waist, and the boy laughed as he pulled away. Lucy was being very sweet. Of course, the beauty is not afraid of the wolf, and they kiss again because they can finally have everything they want. In the morning, Emma asked how it went, and the brunette couldn't find the right words. Everything was too good. The young man gave his beloved a bracelet. He understood that she was against a ring, but she didn't say anything about it. The bracelet had an explosive clasp, and the man decided to take the key with him so that the girl would never take off her gift. When the hero finished, he asked for help fastening his matching bracelet. Of course, he had taken care of that too. After the heroine put on the trinket, the wolf noticed that it was quite loose and needed to be tightened. Lucy put on some music. She wouldn't mind dancing with her beloved. They had time for it anyway. The couple spun around the room, looking into each other's eyes, and the hero finally spoke up. He apologized. The girl didn't understand at first, but it was explained to her that he was apologizing for not going with her to the winter ceremony. Lucy forgave him, but asked him to go with her next time. From now on, everything would be fine, and it was worth believing in that. Some time passed, and the bracelet became loose, which began to irritate her because it rubbed so much. Despite all the inconveniences, the couple did not want to take off the accessory, perhaps because it was meant to be. The two sat in the lamb's house in the evening. She was reading a book until the boy began to disturb her, leaning his head on her shoulder. The boy behaves extremely sweetly. When Leopardy sees him outside and sees him inside, she realizes that the difference is huge. The woman was afraid that the relationship would change when they started dating, but everything only got better. Nothing changed on the outside, except that when Roman came to visit, he didn't leave the girl for a second. From the very beginning, the young man did not even think about reading the book. He was embarrassed because the beauty decided to ask the name of the main character. Each time, the guy becomes more and more charming. His behavior is wonderful, which is probably why people start dating, to experience happiness and joy. The blonde leaned over Leopardy, bit her neck, and when the girl asked what happened, he didn't know if there was any reason for it. The blue-eyed girl smiles, and you can see from the boy's expression that he is trying to find a reason, but it is a little difficult for him. The girl decided not to shame him, and they kissed again, Roman's lips so exciting that it made her tremble. At school, Emma announced that she might break up with Khalid. Her friend had heard this phrase about 50 times before, and each time the reason wasn't worth breaking up over. The girl was ready to listen. This time the problem was serious. The guy said he was going to continue his studies in the capital. The girl wants to stay in the city, and if she stays to study, it will be difficult to meet long distance. Khalid didn't seem to be worried about this. If the girl was afraid, he suggested they get married as soon as she turned 18. It seemed that marriage was a joke for the man. Even though the girl was dating him, he was very stupid. In the leopard family, There were many cases when marriages were concluded immediately upon reaching the age of majority. Every family is competitive, they fight fiercely. The ladies have long since been excluded, but Roman is most likely not. The Baskervilles are against the agreements, but no one knows what will happen. There is not much time left before the end of school life. The good times ended quickly, and the girl wanted to always be close to him. She wanted nothing to change between them. Lucy hasn't thought about marriage yet. Roman's family has always produced wolves, but she doesn't know what will happen if a sheep is born. Of course, the young lady did not hold a grudge against her parents, but she did not want a second heir to be born. No one knew how a child would feel in such a situation. The next day, the girl asked where the young man was going to continue his education. He liked Bailey College in the capital. Her brothers say they need more hands, so they want Roman to finish his studies quickly and start helping out. Lucy didn't know what she wanted for herself. If she continued her studies, she might want to choose the genetics department. Studying what interests her will help her understand why she wasn't born a lion. It's unclear how her parents will react to this, although they have always supported her in everything. The girl asked Roman what he thought about what she was going to do, but he stopped her, saying that he might not return to the capital. Volkov doesn't have to be there. If his future wife wants, they can stay in the town. The young man would never want to have a long-distance relationship. Even after graduating from school, he wants to be close to her. The beauty hugs her beloved tightly. The heroine still does not know what to do. She has to think about it. They say that all members of the leopard family have a lion's heart, but it seems that the sheep does not have one. She is different. In the spring, the lady received a letter from home. Her parents needed to tell her something and asked her to come back for the holidays. The heroine immediately shared the news with her beloved, and it turned out that he was also planning to go home for the holidays. They hadn't been horseback riding in a long time, so you could say that everything worked out pretty well. Sometimes the young man really resembles a small child when he is with the girl, and he will also need to tell his brothers something when they meet. The blonde guy doesn't say it directly, but he'll have to repay his debt. Alexander definitely won't let him get away with what he did. The Baskervilles never helped him his whole life, and now they've meddled where he didn't ask them to and ruined everything. The girl laughs, but her behavior indicates that the family has a good relationship. If everything were bad, they would not argue or fight. It's not that the elders dislike the hero, they just have a special attitude towards him. The Baskervilles find Roman charming, which is why they are playful with him. The blonde man sighed, seeming to understand what kind of misunderstanding had arisen. It is difficult to change a man's mind. If they got along well, they would not behave in this way. In the evening, the hero asked if Lucy had bought a ticket, and without waiting for an answer, he declared that they must sit together. Her dreams were shattered because the lady had already been sent an envelope with the ticket, but the hero promised himself that he would still be there for her. The blue-eyed woman pointed to the table where the paper lay. Someone would definitely be sitting next to her, so she wasn't sure. After reading the letter, the guy smiled. The train belonged to the Baskerville Company, which should have been specified. The young man asked her to trust him, saying that the tickets would definitely be changed to business class in the near future. Somehow, Roman became even more charming. The way he behaved made her smile constantly. The hero sincerely says that he loves the girl. At such moments, he is cute, even if a little clingy. They enjoy being together. The guys are all ready. Their suitcases are already at the door, and the lady says she doesn't think she's forgotten anything. The ticket was changed after all, and the girl will sit next to her beloved. It's time to go. On the platform at the palace, they are met by a whole squad of servants. The blonde man greets the gentleman and offers to show them in. A little earlier, the girl asked what seats had been reserved. She wanted to leave without anyone knowing. The fact that the lamb was travelling with Baskerville would not appear in the newspaper, because all employees were required to keep their mouths shut. The young people went into the carriage. Departure was imminent, but for some reason there was no one else around. Lucy froze in shock when she was told that no one else would be there. The wolf wanted to travel alone, so he had reserved seats for them. The girl didn't know how to behave or what would be the right thing to do. She didn't think the man would go so far. The young man opened the candy and gave it to Lucy. She chewed it, thanked him, and the train departed from the platform. The wolf continued to ask questions. He wanted to know if his beloved was hungry. Perhaps she would need more food. Then the hero decided to massage her hand a little, his eyes constantly asking if he was doing everything right. The beauty rested her head on the young man's head. In fact, it was very good that they were together without anyone else in the car. The girl asked if the young man was going to take a nap during the day, but he didn't understand what she was talking about. The blonde must have been tired after picking her up, and the heroine handed him a mask she had sewn herself. The wolf didn't want to sleep, but he wanted to put on the mask. When he put it on, he felt strange. A few hours later, the train arrived at its destination. It was time for Lucy to wake up, and he suggested they go on a date before returning to his father's house. Nothing had changed in the city. A new pastry shop had opened, and the young man wanted to go there with Leopard. It seemed that something had changed after all. The place really was magical. A little later, the guys gathered at the racetrack. They hadn't been horseback riding in a long time. Lucy looked beautiful in her uniform. Wolf said that he had been practicing and now he was firmly in the saddle. Apparently, it took him a lot of time. It would be better to visit the racetrack more often while the guys were in the capital, and the girl was all for it. After they got into the carriage, the main character asked his beloved if she had enjoyed everything, as they needed to stop at one more place. The man took Lucy to the place where they first met. The hall was empty and the balcony was unchanged as usual. The only thing that had changed was that their eyes were no longer at the same level. The young man had grown a lot since they first met, and from that moment until the last, Baskerville had liked the girl. The romance is honest and sweet, which makes you love it even more, and the beauty is happy to be with such a person. Starting from that very balcony, the couple went around in circles, but now they were finally together again. At dinner with her parents, she was asked many questions. She met wonderful people and she has no complaints about the school. The head of the family asked her to invite one of her classmates. The lady nodded and Khalid will be the first to arrive. Emma is a different story altogether. The beauty still knows Lucy by the surname Hatman. In the evening, someone knocked on the door. Louis was standing on the threshold. The girl poured him some tea and invited him in for a chat. The boy asked if everything was okay with his sister. She nodded. Her friends were sensitive and cheerful. Quite nice guys. The blonde boy looked down sadly. The lady liked this life even more than her past. The woman couldn't imagine that going to school could be fun. After a short silence, Louis abruptly asked why the girl had gone on a carriage ride with Baskerville. The young man wanted to know the truth. He had seen a bracelet that was most likely a pair, the second one belonging to the wolf. The boys met 2 years ago. A friend turned up at school. Louis shouted he lost his composure. The blonde cannot be trusted. From the very beginning, Baskerville tried to secretly get the beauty. No one in their right mind would move from the capital to the provinces. It wasn't Roman who grabbed the girl, but she who caught him in her clutches. It was a sincere feeling. She really liked him. The blonde looks upset. Perhaps his sister decided to play at love. The relationship is not that serious. The girl asks what has come over the young man. If there is no sincerity, it is impossible to even start dating. Leopard behaves this way because he cares deeply about the beauty. He is worried that his sister will be hurt. It seems as if no one is thinking about the girl. It's not that Roman is bad, it's just that they have sincere feelings for each other. Lucy feels strange. She knew she shouldn't have come. She understands that it's wrong. Everything ended badly. The brunette's life couldn't have turned out well anyway, so this is a chance for her. Not everyone can sincerely love someone like her. Louis didn't look at his sister objectively. She was his family, so he didn't see the problem. Seeing that a member of the leopard family looks like a sheep, no sane person would agree to such a thing. All the worries shouldn't fall on the girl's shoulders. No one knows what will happen next. Happiness can crack. Louis did not mean that he should immediately break off relations with Baskerville. At breakfast, the girl briefly mentioned that her brother had decided to go talk to Roman. The boy has a soft heart and is very kind, so there won't be any problems anyway. The girl seemed to have reassured the boy, so she thinks everything will be fine and there is no need to worry. Men are always able to find common ground with each other. Louis arrived and said hello. It was their first meeting, so the girl introduced them to each other and the blonde man nodded his head. An unpleasant atmosphere hung in the room. The girl seemed to be standing between two aggressive animals. Roman smiled, asking what the woman's brother would like to eat. It was hard to believe that the young man was only 15. He behaved very menacingly. When he came home that evening, the blonde fell onto his bed. If he thought of it as a rehearsal for the official meeting with Lucy's family, the main character was terrible. Louis asked the strangest questions, constantly trying to provoke an emotional response. At the end of the meeting, Leopard gave a small gift in an envelope, and the protagonist was afraid to open it. The man put the money for his sister's bracelet and added a few bills on top, ordering him not to give gifts that were too conspicuous. Wolf had no idea what to do. All this had led him to a dead end. The girl made a scene with her brother. He behaved strangely at dinner. He shouldn't have treated her man that way. Le Party thought he was being extremely polite. The blonde couldn't speak confidently. But the situation with Roman following Lucy gives him the creeps. His sister would figure out her own life anyway. She really liked the wolf, and he was incredibly sweet to her. Louis still didn't see a problem. It was normal for him to show concern for someone he cared about. The wolf is special. No one in the leopard family had ever tried going vegetarian, but he did. As his brother said, no one would follow a friend to a school in the countryside, but Roman did. At the very beginning of their friendship, the man even folded origami with the girl, trying with all his might to win her affection and become friends. These traits in Roman's character make it clear that she is truly happy. Louis didn't like the statement. He believes it is unfair to compare his family to a wolf for some reason. The man has no need to eat grass, but he does it anyway, just for his girlfriend's sake. The girl does not understand how a person like Baskerville can exist in the world at all. Her brother still asks her to meet someone else to be sure, but she refuses, as the heroine will never love anyone as much as she loves Roman. The man remains of the same opinion. He is sure that there is someone in the world who will love the girl more than a wolf. In the evening, the lady thought about Baskerville. She understood that he was probably upset and that she should have scolded her brother back in the cafe. Someone threw a stone at the window and almost hit the girl. She noticed her beloved below. The first thing the heroine asked was how the young man had ended up in a forbidden place. Of course, she liked what she had, but still. In fact, the wolf was just lonely, and the young man was sad because he couldn't have a normal conversation. Despite everything, he wants to get along with Leopard because he is Lucy's family. The blonde man no longer wants to hide the fact that they like each other and are dating. He wants to tie the knot with the beauty. The hero took Louis' visit seriously. He wanted to look a little better in his eyes. The beauty listened silently until she said she loved him. The wolf blushed slightly and asked again. The girl wanted to say it while she had the chance. She remembered Leopard's words. She wasn't sure if there was anyone who would love her more than Roman. For her, there was no tomorrow. Lucy pushed the guy onto the bed. He certainly did not expect such a turn of events. He could not even imagine it. The hero had come for a completely different reason, but now it seemed that everything had taken a different turn. Lepardi asked him not to move, promising that she would make it pleasant for him. What was happening seemed unreal. In the morning, Roman was asked where he had run off to during the night. He didn't know what had happened this time. The young man sat with a glassy stare, asking if they would take responsibility if he suddenly got pregnant. Harold understood without words what had happened. The blonde continued to mumble something, but this time about the hull. Lucy remembered last night, the man saying how beautiful she was, but the girl herself didn't see anything special. The girl didn't have a lion's heart or courage, and she wondered if Emma had any doubts when she started dating. The brunette decided to go to the post office because she remembered that a letter from her friend might have arrived. The letter began typically with the heroine wanting to break up with Khalid again. The young man turned out to be the son of the chairman of a huge publishing house. He was a real snake. While the girl was trying to build a normal relationship, Khalid seemed to be testing her strength. The couple had been dating for over 2 years, and Emma had always shown herself as she was without hiding the truth. The blue-eyed girl feels fear. In fact, she also hid her face and family and realizes that everything will get worse. It seems that during her school days, Lucy was deeply immersed in her life as Hatman, and she should have told the truth earlier. The next day, a message arrived, but this time it was not from her friend, but from someone else. The hero was in despair. Khalid wrote that he had hoped for the best, but in the end he got nothing. The green-eyed man begged for help and asked how to convince Emma. He had also helped Lucy, so he was asking for a favor in return. After all, Khalid wasn't the only one hiding his true identity, and you really couldn't argue with him. Louis knocked on the door and asked to talk, but the girl ordered him to leave her alone, the room filled to the brim with Roman's scent. The heroine had a lot to think about. The man seemed offended, but he left anyway, asking to eat later. The beauty exhaled with a hint of relief and picked up the letter again to finish reading it. Zmei was going to tell her everything gradually, how he was met on the street, and the blonde was mistaken for his girlfriend. The green-eyed man was asked why he hadn't been in touch after a party a few days ago. The beauty learned the truth in the worst possible way, and the young man understood Lucy's problem because he had experienced the same thing in the past. The hero took everything too easily. He was fearless and, unlike others, he had a lot of money and no flaws. One day, the guy was hit with a crushing loneliness and he didn't know what to do about it. Everyone around him seemed disgusting, including Khalid himself. He stopped throwing parties and wasting money. His numerous friends disappeared. Then the young man transferred to a provincial school, realizing that it would be better that way. At school, the hero met Emma. At first, he thought she was funny, but nothing more. However, he now realized that there was more to it than that. Zmei wanted to tell the truth, but he was afraid that if his friend found out about his past, she would despise him. The girl writes a reply, asking him to be brave, saying that Emma loves him much more than it seems. In order for the rabbit to believe him, he will have to make an effort and everything will be fine for them. In addition to giving advice and support, Leopardi also said that it was her turn to unburden her soul. The girl asked if her friend wanted to marry Emma, and he couldn't believe that the beauty had asked about it herself. The young man had already begun to worry and make plans, but he was mistaken. It turned out that Roman wanted to marry Lucy. The girl was confused by the guy's serious mood. Khalid sometimes jokes with Emma, but that means everything is serious. His feelings for Baskerville are sincere, and Leopardi doesn't want to beat around the bush. The wolf family is romantic, but also politically incompatible with the lions, and the woman tried to be realistic. Although people act as they see fit, in reality they don't even know what the weather will be like in a day. Nothing is impossible. Khalid has a rough plan of action that is worth implementing in order to win. To begin with, the lamb must take an observant position. If she sets sail in the right direction and waits, everything will be fine. The man understands that they are unable to sort out their love problems, but advice on support can always be given perfectly. Although the hero does not entirely like Roman, the girl should still keep him close and give him all her love and care. The lady does not know if the wind will blow and where it will lead. Her hand reached for another envelope. It was time to talk to Emma. The lady started with the important stuff right away, writing that her real last name is Leopardi, and Hatman is her great-grandmother's last name. The girl was sorry that she had hidden the facts until the very end. She had never fit in with her real family because she was the result of a mutation. Emma's puzzle was complete. She finally learned all the circumstances. The lady wrote that Roman was her only friend and he had followed her from the capital. At first, when the man went to a party with another girl, the rabbit thought that he was actually not so great. Lucy hoped that despite her surname, they would remain friends, and the beauty explained that she would never abandon her. The blonde was only angry that she had been kept in the dark the whole time, but she wasn't too upset. Khalid turned out to be a third-generation rich man, and 2 years later his girlfriend announced that her last name was different. The woman did not think it made sense to hide the whole truth for so long, and Emma tried to convey the whole range of emotions through text. The rabbit promised that they would see each other after the holidays, but after the beauty had spoken her mind, she felt better. The blue-eyed girl couldn't believe she had such good friends who cared about her. She had never had that before. The girl sat at the table with a cup of tea, continuing to ponder, when Louis came in to ask if her mood had improved. The lady perfumed herself, as if she were going somewhere, although in reality, she simply did not want anyone to notice Roman's scent. The blonde man said again that he didn't want his sister to date Baskerville. She understood, but she still couldn't do it. Lucy loved her family, but there was a big wall between them, and she always regretted that they couldn't become one. The heroine's great-grandmother was able to defend her love for her grandfather, even though her family was probably also against the marriage. She wanted the same with Roman, for everything to be fine. Evening comes, Roman is getting ready to leave. He says goodbye to his brothers, who ask him not to stay until the end. Baskerville gradually becomes the same as before, and Harold disagrees with Alexander. The blonde man does not know who fathered his brother. In his opinion, there is no